All members of the planning board being present, call this meeting to order. A lot on the agenda tonight, so we're going to try and keep it as brisk as possible and move through everyone. So, starting with agenda item A, approval of minutes. We don't have any for this evening. Moving to agenda item B, committee reports, administrative action. Any committee reports any members wish to make at this time? Seeing none, moving on to agenda item B2, town planners report. Slaughter?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you folks have your copies of my report in front of you. I'm going to take it a little bit out of order because one of the items is a little more involved. Just starting up top on the horizon, we don't have any new applications for the August 21 meeting date yet. The filing deadline is next Thursday, so there may be some to come in still. Another note that's not on here, I would like to note that the Woodhaven project has received their building permits, so we'll be starting those renovations very soon, which is really exciting for all of us. A reminder that that is a 55-plus congregate living facility with some minimal wraparound services. And another note that on Wednesday, August 9th, myself and the conservation agent will be holding a workshop for realtors to learn a little bit more about how to read and interpret our zoning bylaw, our wetland bylaw, and just really ask questions of staff that they frequently have when they are getting ready to do projects. So if anybody has any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them. Next, board members had requested at prior meetings that reminder emails be sent to project owners who are winding down on construction and are either receiving or are close to receiving final occupancy to ensure timely delivery of final site as-built. A first round of email reminders was sent on Tuesday, June 27th, and I will update the board of any major concerns. Most applicants have responded, noting that their as-builts are in progress or have been submitted. Moving on, MBTA communities. A survey was launched on June 27th, 2023, and has received 275 responses to date. It was mentioned during my last planners report on the June 26th meeting, and it was republished, on July 14th. The survey will remain open until July 28th. The purpose of the survey is to solicit initial input for potential locations for a compliant MBTA communities zoning overlay district. And again, if folks have questions about that, they are welcome to direct them to me at the office via email or phone call. Another item here for E4All. On July 6th, I met with Sofan Smith, who is the Merrimack Valley Director from Entrepreneurship for All, commonly known as E4All, and they provide programs and training for those wishing to start their own business. So think sole proprietor, not small business necessarily. And many vendors from the Tewksbury Community Market, including Crack Hot Sauce, Empanada Dada, and Purple Carrot Bakery, have all been graduates of this program. I'm going to be attending their pitch contest event at Mill Number 5 in Lowell on Thursday, August 10th, to see if there are any budding entrepreneurs who would like to start their business in Tewksbury. And if anybody would like more information about how to get in touch with E4All, please feel free to contact my office. And last but not least here, ADUs by right. So at our last meeting on June 26th, and likewise at the Select Board June 27th meeting, I presented a final draft of the Housing Production Plan, which was then subsequently submitted to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, formerly DHCD. An element of that plan was exploring replacing our family suite bylaw, section 7.1, with an accessory dwelling unit by right bylaw. And I have included in your packets here an example of the city of Lowell that they've presented to their council for adoption. This would help remove barriers for small apartment rentals and provide an array of benefits for homeowners in Tewksbury who can no longer maintain their larger homes, are looking to supplement their income to pay home expenses and things like that. I would like to get some feedback about working on something like this for October special town meeting, or if we feel that that's too short of a turnaround, next May. The example I included received support from the Lowell Planning Board and is scheduled for discussion with the City Council later this summer, and it is similar to what other communities are proposing for adoption. I just ran through an awful lot of stuff right now, so if any of you guys have any questions, I'm happy to take them right now.
Anybody?
All set?
All right.
Just some food for thought. If you have any questions or think of anything related to the ADU bylaw, just shoot them an email.
All right, moving on to agenda item B3, 2131 Main Street, phasing discussion.
How's everybody doing today?
How are you?
Hey, I'm Chris Doherty, attorney for 2131 Main Street, which is a project ongoing in the city right now. With me, I have the builder, Brendan Carr. He's the builder of the project. And I have Mark Christofori, who is the primary lender on the project here tonight. We wanted to give you an update on where we are with the project and talk next step to get some clarification. But first, I want to thank Alex and her team, because we feel like we've had a good partnership with the city. Their communication, we may not agree on all the issues that come up, but the communication is very good and very helpful. So we appreciate that level of service from the town. As we move forward, at this point, we've put in foundations on the project. The gas is in, the water is in, the sewer's in. The gas finalization is a couple of weeks out. We're now looking at the next phase, which is the actual vertical structures going up. On our plan currently, it's absent a phasing schedule. So we talked to Alex to make sure that we, in good communication with the board, because we know this is an important project to you and the residents. So we wanted to talk through and get clarification on our next steps and to see if we can get some guidance for the board and hope that you'll approve how we want to phase the next components of this project. I provided a proposal, which is basically the foundation plan, just to help with numbering. Does everybody have that with them? If not, I have some extra copies. So what we are hoping to achieve so that we can financially get this project off the ground the right way is a phasing schedule where we would start with the first building, okay, which would be 15 through 11 on the foundation plot plan that I provided. And what we're specifically asking for is this. Our intent would be to start with that building so we can start to get some revenue going with buyers and to make sure that this project is viable, to get this building weather tight first, to make sure that we have all of our fire suppression, fire sprinklers in the building. We'll get the landscaping around that phasing complete. And then we are hoping that we can, once we get to that level of the building, once we get a unit under agreement, that we can sell and get occupancy on that specific unit. So that way we ensure that there's safety for the residents that live in that first phase. But two, it allows us to sell and get revenue so that the project could be viable. So the specific request is to go through where it's absent on any language for the plan. So just to come and, be a good community partner instead of just going forward saying, hey, do you agree with this in terms of the next steps? Where we would go building by building, as we would typically do in a project.
So, anything else? That's it?
That's it.
Start with Mr. Fattalia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand the concept you want to do, and I understand the concern. I guess my concern is for people that are living there, and then you're still doing a whole bunch of construction.
Yep.
For years, probably going forward.
Yep.
So I don't know if I'd want to live there under those situations.
Yep.
With you building, and it's going to be a constant thing, because it's just getting started and getting off the ground.
Yes.
So that would be a concern, of mine and probably everybody on the board here as far as, and then the other thing is devil's advocate, what if something happens and you don't finish the project?
Yep.
We may have a bond in place, but
Yep.
to cover the whole thing, probably not gonna happen. So
Yep.
unless we revise something and, so those are some of my concerns. I understand it's a money situation and all that, but,
Yeah. No, they're good.
it's nothing that we did on this end, so.
Yep.
I know it's been ongoing for a long time. I was hoping that it was gonna be getting done faster than it is now, but. So with those concerns, I'll let my other planning board members speak, but those are some of my concerns, just going forward, so. All set, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Fattalia. Ms. Lozani.
Yeah, just kind of echoing similar concerns about going in a unit by unit approach versus building by building approach. Then I think the other question that we've been kind of chiming in on over the last couple of sessions here is the affordable units and making sure that we get those built out and
Yeah.
occupied. How would those look like in this phasing proposal?
Okay, those are great questions. Do you want me to answer it now, or do you want me to wait till you're all done and
No,
comment?
you can answer.
Okay, I think first, if I could just respond to your request, and then I can go to yours. I think the first thing is that when residents move in, they know that they're coming into a new construction project. One of the benefits of that is that usually they get it at better pricing, because they know as the project advances and improves, usually they're gonna do better financially. So they know, it's not like they're coming into a project and they're saying, hey, this is fully complete. We have to be open and transparent with them, and they can see it. But it's a good concern, and it's one that we care about, because we want to make sure that the residents that are there are well taken care of and they're happy, because they're the ones that help sell the other units. So that's a critical part that's important. Building by building is what we are coming to you for. We're not saying we're just gonna build one unit. We're saying we're gonna get this entire building weather tight for you. Roofs, sidings, windows. But there's a finishing component that happens in each unit. So like when a buyer comes in, the timing is sometimes phased out. We wanna make sure that we're able to accommodate a buyer when they come in. And it's really twofold, because you wanna look at it just not as finishing the building, but your concern, if we do this building all at once, the likelihood of financial failure is pretty significant. With the amount of interest carry that would be on a complete project like that, think about if we put that first or second person in, and then the builder goes belly up because he has $7 or $8 million on a high interest loan that's coming in. So the way that we can succeed for the person living there is really to make sure that we do this in phases. And they know, they take that risk because they come in and they see that. As regards to the affordable units, and Alex and I have talked about this, I've been in touch with the Chelmsford Housing Department, and our plan would be on the first date to put in an affordable unit. We haven't selected the exact one yet because we're waiting to see how the lottery wants to handle it, and then we'll do the affordable unit on the second set that comes in. But that's an important component for us as well, because the town of Tewksbury has done a great job working to get affordable units, and we view ourselves as an important partner in that. So we want to make sure that those people get an opportunity to get a great house at an affordable price, but we also want to put them in a way so they don't feel like they're stuck together in the unit. So we'll put them in separate buildings so that people can't really identify which one the affordables are, but they're great questions.
That's all the questions I have.
Mr. Dutton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The one thing that I haven't heard is, and I guess I'm a little curious why now you come with a phasing proposal, you know, like why wasn't that thought about in the beginning, you know?
You know, it's a good question, because normally all projects are phased like this. And usually it's absent in our proposal. It doesn't say no phasing. So normally we just build. We never really considered phasing. We just keep going one by one as they go. But the reality is we got to this level is now we're looking at vertical infrastructure, and we're in communication with the town. They said they're not going to give occupancy on units. And I want you to think this through practically for us. We have buyers right now interested in this project, but I could get them into a first set of this building relatively quickly. But if I have to wait for the entire project to be built out, I'm likely to lose those buyers on the front end. So as we go through this process and they said, hey, you gotta build the whole thing, we're coming to you now to say, you know, we're looking to do it in a phasing, which is ordinarily how a project would be done.
Well, I don't think anybody wants to see the project go bad, but, you know, another thing that I really haven't heard from you is some kind of a schedule, like if we were to become amenable to a phasing type plan, you know, what's the schedule? Is this job gonna take, 6 months? Is it gonna take a year?
It really gets driven by sales, right? If you want the project to be successful, we need to have sales dictate where we go. And so our plan would be an aggressive, naturally, Brendan is, this is an expensive financial project. So his motivation is to get the units moved and sold as fast as possible.
I'd be a little uncomfortable with that myself. I have to say that if we have to sit back and wait for your salespeople to rent an apartment here and there.
Yeah.
For us to have some idea
Yeah.
as to how the project is gonna progress.
We're happy to come back in and report to you, which.
You don't have any kind of a construction schedule where you're gonna be, having framing delivered one week and,
Yeah.
And
Well, yeah,
some
so-
type of a look ahead. I mean, I'm not looking for, you
Yeah.
know, dates and times here, but I'm looking for something that would give the town some level of comfort working with you folks to, you know, to talk about a phasing.
Yep.
You know, one thing that we did do is we came in and did a lot of site work, very heavy site work. Every sewer line's done, water, sewer, electric, drainage is all done. What you don't see right now is the paving, which is scheduled for next month, and we are waiting for the gas company to finish that up. So there's not one foundation that needs to be done, and even underneath the foundations, we went down considerable ways to make sure the bearing was right. So all that came with a pretty extensive cost to make sure that this project, and we're into the project for quite a little handy sum as of today. So, you know, each building itself is probably, you know, probably 8 to 10 months to complete, like sticks and bricks, siding on, windows in, paint, and all the, everything that goes with it, lights on and all that kind of stuff. There is some trouble sometimes when you try to rely on the, right now it's a gas company. They were out 6 months, but we're still on their schedule for next month. On the 6th is supposed to be when they come in. So we can tell you, yeah, it's gonna be, you know, probably 8 months per building, but each building's gonna really need those sales to keep this thing rolling. And we have confidence in the sales, but what we just don't wanna do is just put out the full amount of money, and then all of a sudden we're shoveling, you know what I mean? We're behind, and that in itself becomes a bad snowball. So that's why we're here.
So that doesn't make me feel a lot better, I have to tell you.
Okay.
And I will also say that I would like to see a, you know, kind of a comprehensive, you know, construction access plan that is going to tell us, is going to show us how the, once a building is finished and you have renters in there, you know, how is that space going to be accessed? How is it going to be kind of, you know, separated out from the construction work areas and so on and so forth. So schedule, construction access, and I think I would feel a lot more comfortable if I saw something along those lines.
Okay.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Good evening, gentlemen. I understand your financial concerns, and having recently helped with a very substantial phase project, our new elementary school, I can understand the importance of what Mr. Duffy just referred to. If he didn't bring it up, I certainly was going to. In order to get us to be able to follow your vision of the progress of this project, you've outlined, sorry. So we have 4 phases. I understand the building part of it, right? Because it's bound by the foundation. What I'd like to see is phase 1, I want to see landscaping, paving. I want to see what's going to be done on the site. I want to see where your trucks are going to go, where your labor vehicles are going to park, where your deliveries are going to be, where your laydown areas are going to be. Because if I'm going to approve, as a member of the planning board, if I'm going to approve a phasing of this project for the turnover, which I'm 100% on board with, because I agree that getting money in to get to the next project is key, I need to know that those new residents, that their safety, their property, their air quality and all of that is going to be protected. So I need to know that they don't have to worry about if they have a teenager that wants to ride their bike out to the sidewalk, that they're not going to be, you know, endangered by dump trucks coming through, or, you know, any other type of delivery trucks or anything else. So, so I guess what I would love to see is just, I'd love to see this plan with, when phase 1 is done, this is what you're going to see. All the way down to the landscaping and the paving and you don't have to show me the fixtures inside or anything, but just on the outside. And then have it clearly mark where the construction areas are going to be, and how are you going to be putting up temporary fencing or anything like that? You know, because I mean, I'm sure if the new residents have cars and other things, they're going to want to make sure that dust and other you know, aspects of the construction are not going to spill over into their nice new home away from home, or home sweet home, actually. So if I saw something like that, and then again, like you said, if we get one building up and running, we should be able to turn over the other buildings in 8-month chunks. I'm okay with that. There's forces that we can't control. I've been waiting since middle of May for seal coating, right? Hot weather and extensive rain, so they're months behind schedule. So that's not where we're looking to play gotcha or anything like that. But I'd like to see a very clear plan laid out phase by phase to show us how you're going to bring this project online in those phases. And for me, I know you don't have anything on the affordables yet, but part of the consistency that I'm going to be trying to build up is and I don't know who should answer this, but how many affordable units total do we have 2 on this project?
You have 2.
So basically, my preference would typically be either 1 in phase 1 and 1 in phase 3, or 2 by the end of phase 2. So that would be my preference.
Just to know, Mr. Champa, that per the zoning bylaw, even the old one that they were approved under, they're required to produce 1 affordable unit at 50% occupancy, which wouldn't happen if they move in the direction that they're looking to do. That first building would not trigger it, but they absolutely would in the second one. So we'd be looking for an affordable unit at phase 2 and phase 3, but it wouldn't be required in the first phase,
Okay.
strictly speaking.
And then just one general question I had is, the trade-off here, if you were to do units 5 through 10 and turn that building over first, as opposed to units 11 through 15, so what would be the difference there? If you turn 5 through 10 over, now the new residents are kind of tucked away, the construction isn't moving past them quite as much. So that just might be something to consider when you come up with your phasing plan, is all you would need is maybe a narrow driveway that goes down one side and then the other side, so your residents have free and clear access, but they're kind of secluded and sheltered from the ongoing construction. If you do 11 through 15, they've got constructions in front of them and to the side of them, so I think that might be a little more intrusive. That's just my 2 cents. I'm not directing you to, redo your phasing plan, but I just thought you might want to take that into consideration as you're going through the construction management plan for the phasing. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so part of this is, obviously, it's a byproduct of the new zoning law, because this is kind of how these were all done in the past. They just kind of got done 1 for 1. We just did this also on Main Street not too long ago, where we authorized the phasing. One way or the other, I think we need to clean this up, so we're not doing this project by project for everything that's outstanding. Also, so we can be consistent. However, being that part of the reason on this, because this was done under the old zoning, and that's, the way you get the numbers you get is that commercial building. The phasing you presented has the commercial at the end, potentially having all the units sold, and then suddenly, gee, I just don't have the cash to get that commercial building done. And now you never do the building you never wanted to do in the beginning at all, and you've walked away with everything except for the bond we have, which isn't gonna get us anywhere. So you've gotten everything you actually wanted without having to do what you were supposed to do just to get what you were getting. So I have a concern with that. We do have a proposal potentially to, do something with the commercial unit where there's a possibility, if we go forward with it, that there might be an option to request changing it over to a rental unit, but that hasn't happened yet. That's off in the future if it even happens at all. But that's how you got what you got. You wouldn't have gotten the 15 units otherwise, and you wouldn't have gotten the 15 under the current bylaw. What would you have gotten to? Do you know off the top of your head? I'm gonna make you do the math, because they told me no math. Just come close, it doesn't matter.
Probably, actually, it might be close.
Close, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd probably be
About the
could be around the same,
Yeah.
which is a little unusual, actually.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. So, but without running the numbers, we don't know exactly where we'd get, out of the total. So I understand some of the concerns for the other members, you know, with the one by one by one, you know. I'll disagree with Mr. Champ just a little bit in that, you know, I could see why the first unit set are the ones in the middle, because once they're done, those people can kind of get in and out while construction is going on to the side. Then once that's done, all those units in the front can get in and out. I mean, sure, there'll be trucks coming in, but you're not gonna stop that no matter what. There're gonna have to be trucks coming on the site, but all the work that's actually going on will be back behind them for that last set of units, rather than constantly, every time they look out the front of their house, the work's always going on in front of them otherwise. So I can understand the reasoning for the order. I have a suggestion. In my suggestion, you have 5 phases instead of what you have, which would allow 11 through 15 would be a phase 1. Phase 2 would be the 1.1 through 4. Phase 3 would be 5 through 7. Phase 4 would be the commercial unit, with phase 5 being units 8, 9, and 10. In terms of how you can sell them, you can build the things, I don't care if you're doing them as part of that project, but that commercial unit's gonna get done. You know, I'm pushing it off towards the back enough that if this thing comes about, if we make this change, if it happens, you may have the opportunity to, you know, make that request, at which point, if that were to come to fruition and you come in and that's something we were gonna approve, I can see if you ask at that time to reconsider the phasing process. I can't speak for the board, I don't know who will be here.
Yep.
To me, if I'm here, I could understand having a conversation about that, because now I have a much warmer feeling that you're gonna get to it.
Yep.
And I'm not as concerned, because you're gonna wanna sell it as a rental, as a sale unit.
Yep.
So I'm not as concerned at that point. So if we need to, you know, reorder things, I can live with that. But I don't want it parked at the end with everything else being done, and then suddenly we're chasing, you know, whether it's this owner, or in the middle of the
Somebody
project, it
else.
becomes some other owner, and we're
Yeah.
chasing somebody who isn't you, who, you know,
Yeah.
we might believe you, but the person who owns it then is someone we're gonna be fighting with for 2 decades, because it's never gonna get done, that kind of thing. So, you know, I just kind of drew that up. I don't have any idea how the rest of the board feels about it, but that's something I could live with in terms of, you know, working a phasing process. It'll get you, you know, 12 of the 15 done before you have to worry about, you know, the commercial unit, at which point, you know, a good chunk of the financial has been dealt with. At that point, you'll be 50% in, so I think in that second phase, we'd kick on the affordable, and then the last affordable could be in the last phase, and that will work. So it also doesn't hamper you with having to deal with, you know, the second one before the commercial unit has to be dealt with. So, you know, you guys can consider it, you know, I don't know how quickly you can decide whether or not that works for you or not, and I'll just ask the rest of the board, you know, if they have any thoughts on it while you're running your numbers in your head. Mr. Chapman?
I like that idea, making sure that the commercial unit gets built. And I like your idea of giving them enough time that if they want to redesign it and make it an affordable unit. So I think that is a very good idea.
Okay. Susan?
Seems reasonable.
Mr. Vitale?
I agree. I want to see it succeed, you know, I don't want to see it fail like we had another one in town just that failed on a very similar situation, money tight, interest rates, and not having the financing. So I believe the commercial units, if they do apply for that down the road, have to be affordable, correct? So the two, if you had 2 more units that come out of the commercial space down the road, they have to be affordable, so you know that, so.
Okay,
Put that
that's
in all
good.
set, yeah.
Mr. Duffy?
Yeah, and I agree as well, Mr. Chairman, with the rephasing that you discussed there. But I still would like to see some type of a construction schedule, you know, so that this isn't going to go on until the end of the time.
Ms. Lauder, did that work?
Just to make sure that I'm capturing everything. So my understanding is that the phasing will be 5 phases, with the first one being units 11 through 15, the second one being 1 through 4, the third being 8, 9, and 10.
No, I have 5, 6, and
5, 6,
7.
7, okay, so switch those. Third being 5, 6, 7, 4 being commercial, third being 8, 9, and 10, and the affordable units produced as discussed, one at 50% occupancy, one at 100%. So that'll be roughly phases 2 and 5. And the board would also like to see what the finished product is going to look like. Mr. Champ asked for perhaps a rendering, just an idea of what everything's going to look like if someone's going to be, we're talking about move-in ready. And then Mr. Duffy's point about the construction plan, just an idea to be able to see what the expectations are, what kind of milestones you're expecting to be hitting. Certainly nothing we're going to hold you, letter of the law if it doesn't happen and it's all your fault, but just an idea so that we can kind of see some expectations of what it's going to look like. And the other note is I did send all the board members as well as the applicants here 5 proposed conditions to implement in this phasing of the project. And I went over these with the building commissioner, and he found all of them to be reasonable. So I'd be happy to hear if you want to adopt all of them, some of them, none of them, just so I can be clear on what we're doing going forward.
I mean, no one has any issue with these, right?
No. Could I respond to just a couple of things?
Yep.
First, we're agreeable to the schedule. We've shown a commitment to the commercial units already because we put the foundations in, which haven't happened at any of the other projects in town. So that commitment is here, and we agree with it. Relative to the building commissioner, what we're hoping to do relative to that is on the phasing, if phase 1, as you put it, is get the buildings to fire safety and then try to get occupancy for the units as they come up, is what we're hoping for after reviewing the building commissioner, so we can start to get sales.
Right, which is...
The wording on the building commissioner, I mean, I'm a lawyer, so I look at things a little bit differently in terms of, it says all the buildings, framed, so it sounds like the way that it's worded is the entire project has to be, and that may not have been the intention, but.
That was the intention, but that's something for you folks to discuss. And if you disagree, that's fine, but that's something that we've talked about, having all of the buildings weather tight and then going through and doing all the interior finishes. But if that's not something that you're proposing to do, or if you don't want to agree to it, then that's
So
fine.
you're saying your schedule wouldn't have the whole building?
We would do
project.
a phase 1, we would do that, but we don't want to do the entire project at once. It wouldn't be financial feasible to do phase 1, 2, 3, 4,
Okay, so if we change it to all phasing?
all phases, exactly.
Yeah, so, okay, yeah, that's fine. We can change, if everything's fine, change the phrasing to each phase must be.
Yeah, exactly. That's all. Maybe that was the intent too, but I looked at the language. I
Well,
just
we don't
wanted
want
to
to
get
come back here and have to
clarification.
do it again, so
Yeah.
let's...
Yeah, no, you read it correctly, so that's fine.
And then as it relates to the other portions of your phasing schedule, do you want us to come back, or do they have the authority that we can present that to them? And I just want to make sure they have the authority so we can start to.
I'm fine with just having it submitted so we have it for the file.
Yep.
Same thing on, the renderings. I mean, we'll see them, but I don't want to hold the process up.
Yep.
But understand, you're not going to get anywhere on unit 1, or whatever, 11.
Yeah.
If we don't have it.
Yep.
So it's in your best interest to get them in,
And we will.
because our authorization is on hold until
Yeah.
we get everything
And
we
we'll
asked
get
for.
that. I just want to make sure that
Okay.
if you want us to come back, I would schedule us to come back, but if
I
you're
mean,
okay.
does anybody do we really need them to come back, or do we just want to get the information and then it's in the file?
I wouldn't mind having a look at if we can do it off meeting, I don't know if we can do that or
So
not, but
what I can do is, once the applicants have submitted the requested documents, I can send them all to you via email, and as long as there is no deliberation, discussion, or decision-making happening in the email thread, and it's just transmission of plans from me to you, just so you can see them and see what they look like, that's perfectly fine. And if you want to discuss anything about it, you can say, I'd like to put this on the agenda for August 21st to have further discussion, but for right now, if I transmit it to all of you, once I receive it from the applicant and there's no concerns and everything looks good, then we can just kind of say, no news is good news.
I mean, I don't want to cost extra weeks, because we only
Sure,
meet
no,
the
I
one time in
understand.
August too,
Yeah.
and then barring some issue, and then we don't have enough people, you know what I mean, just something happened. So, all right, so then it's contingent,
Yeah, we'll
getting that
provide that to
information.
the department, and that will be sufficient.
well,
Okay.
Construction's not gonna stop there, you gotta keep constructing, you gotta still
Yeah.
keep building, so I mean, this is
Yeah.
only a paper product.
I'm just thinking a thumbs up or a thumbs down on the construction plan and schedule. That's what I'm thinking of. I want to see it before
Yeah.
I'm going to say, yeah, that's kind of what I had in mind.
All right, then we're not voting then. Is that what you don't want to vote?
We can vote and Alex can send it out when they
Right,
submit it.
okay, then, so, okay.
Just to give me some guidance, what specifically do you want in that schedule? What is it specifically that you're looking for?
Well, I mean, I would think as a builder, that you might want to have some idea when you're going to have the lumber delivered to start a building. When do you start your frame? When do you put your windows in? When do you put your roof on? A construction schedule that just generally lays out the dates that you will be starting and finishing the buildings.
Okay.
Dates for inspections and so on and so forth.
Okay. I mean, you're free to ask for whatever you want. The only thing is, we've never required that from anybody, and this is only being caused by the new bylaw. Everybody else built their projects just like this without having to come in to see us. This is being caused by the new bylaw because the building commissioner is reading it as phasing for even small projects. The only phasing in the entire time I've been on the board is for giant projects where they're literally going to be years apart. They're the only ones we've ever talked about phasing. We never brought up phasing before. The discussion of these phasings is only being created by the new zoning bylaw. And a reading of it, and I'm saying he's not wrong, the way he's reading, I'm just saying by the building inspector, that's saying we didn't speak to it when we approved it. Well, we didn't speak to it because we've never had to. We've only ever done that with giant projects where you're doing literal phasing, meaning huge chunks of project are being done years apart. So, I mean, we can ask for a construction schedule. I just don't know how accurate it's going to be if we're trying to plan out something that's going to go on over this amount of time and know when windows are showing up and when lumber, you know what I mean? I'm not sure that they're going to be able to produce something like that, but we've never asked anybody for it either. The building of how they're building this stuff is not typically one of our purviews. We're deciding whether or not what they've presented.
Mr. Chairman, the applicants have mentioned that there's some financial concerns on their end, if there's phasing. I have no problem at all with the phasing part of it, but I just don't want to leave too many loose ends, like an open-ended construction job that's going to be going on for 5 years over there.
Which I understand, but every project has a financial. What I'm saying is, if we're doing this once, then we're going to get into the habit of, we're going to have to start asking for that information every time we approve a project, or why would we let anyone phase it? Because of course, when they show up, they think they can do it. You don't find out until after the fact if you have a financial problem.
To be quite honest with you, it's a little surprising to me that they don't have some type of Microsoft project schedule for the project anyways. You know what I mean? That they could just print off and send over to planning. So I don't see it as
Generic is
being,
what you need, that's all.
as being a big thing, to be quite honest.
The way that the
Mr. Chairman.
industry works is, it's hard to, I don't know if you've ever had a plumber at your house that you were hoping was going to show up, or an electrician. It's hard to pin people down for timing. We could give you something, but my concern for my clients are, I don't want to give you something that we can't honor, and then you're coming back to us with enforcement saying, hey, you were supposed to frame this on this date and you didn't, when we really can't control a lot of those third-party subs. Nobody has a greater financial interest to get this done than my clients. They have millions of dollars on the line. The goal is to get this project up and get it moving. That's why we're here, because, honestly, it's not typical, I do this every day, that we would have to build an entire project and come to a meeting to ask for a phasing schedule. It's the first time I've done it, doing this in 25 years. So I'm just trying to move it forward. We could give you some template, but I just don't want to be held and say.
Yeah, no, nobody's going to hold you to it. No,
You know.
nobody's going to hold you to it. I'm just looking for a rough idea.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay.
What your look ahead is for the construction project.
Okay.
So I think, Mr. Duffy, I think you can do that for us. If you can do that, just get some idea,
Yeah.
rough idea.
Yeah.
Mr. Duffy's been in the building trades for a long time,
Yeah,
so
I know you.
nothing new to him. So he's been in that, so just so you know, but.
So what are we treating this as? What do we need as a vote for this?
That you are authorizing the phased construction of the project as we set forth here and as amended.
In terms of numbers?
Oh, simple majority.
Okay. All right. So And it's not part of a public hearing, so I just assume put a vote out and then see where we end up, so.
Fine.
All right, so what's the pleasure of the board on the request of the applicant?
I can make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we move ahead and phase the project, and, you know, with information being transferred back and forth with your cooperation and so forth and so on, you get what you want. Phases are gonna help yourself as well, and when we see something going forward, so I'd like to make that motion that we do a phasing.
So basically what you read off, right? Okay, all right, so that motion made, do I have a second? Motion made, seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks, we appreciate your time, appreciate your concern. We'll take care of that to make sure that we address
Moving
it.
on to
Thank you.
agenda item C, 174 French Street. Can I have a motion to waive the public reading?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, motion made, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Do we have someone? Okay.
Yep.
Once you get settled, if you just give your names for the record, the floor is yours.
Linda Catalano.
Anthony Catalano.
All right, floor is yours. So if you just want to tell us what you want to do, and then,
I'm just building a family suite. I'm building a new home, and in it is going to be a family suite where my son is going to live and his wife.
all right. Start with Mr. Champa.
The plans pretty much tell me everything I need to know. I don't have any questions. The one question I had, you've already answered, which was when I looked at the property on Google Earth, I didn't see the address, so it's a new building, and part of that is going to be a family suite, so.
Right.
Other than that, no questions.
All right, Mr. Lazari.
I have no questions on it.
Mr. Duffy.
I have no questions, just a comment. It's a nice-looking ADU, and, you know, when I first looked at it, I saw the office up there, but I see that would have exceeded your square footage a little bit there. But it looks pretty nice, and I'm okay with it, and I wish you luck.
Thank you.
Mr.
Just
Fratelli.
one question. How many square feet?
952.
Okay. All right, I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
The chair is all set as well. We'll open up to the audience. Anyone in the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns on this? Once, twice? All right, bring it back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion, Chairman, to close the public hearing.
Motion made, do I have a second?
Second?
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. As to the family suite special permit, what's the pleasure
I'll
of the
make a
board?
motion, Mr. Chairman, that we approve the family suite at 174 French Street as proposed.
We have a motion made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank
Good luck.
Thank you.
That brings us to agenda item D, 1438 Main Street. Could I have a motion to waive the public reading?
So moved.
Motion made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Have a seat. Once you're settled, just give us your name. Sure. Floor is yours.
Good evening, John Peterson, Metro Sign and Awning. We're just here proposing a secondary wall sign for a new business, Ben's Health Boston, at 1438 Main Street. They have two entrances to the building, one in the parking lot, and one facing Main Street. They're just looking for another sign above the entrance on the Main Street side. They already have installed the one on the parking lot entrance to the building. The sign will be 6.8 square feet, about 1 foot by a little over 5 feet. No illumination on that either.
All right. Mr. Duffy.
I have no problem with this waiver, Mr. Chairman. I'm good.
Mr. Fratelli.
All set, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Lozano.
All set.
Mr. Champ.
I'm all set, too.
Easy again. This chair is all set for this, so. All right, with that, I'll open up the audience. Anyone in the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns? Only once, twice, back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board?
We'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to close the public hearing.
Motion made, do I have a second?
Second?
Motion made, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. As to the signed special permit,
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we approve the signed special permit at 1438 Main Street.
I have a motion made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. All right, we had a request made to make an accommodation. That would be for hearing H, if we could take it here due to a conflict for one of their presenters. So as long as none of the other members on the board have an issue with it, we're going to accommodate the request. Is that all right with everybody?
Yes.
All right, can I have a motion to move agenda item H up next, please?
So moved.
A motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Okay, so we are bringing up 1695 Shawshene Street. This is continued from our 627 meeting. Gentlemen, as part of your accommodation, if it can be said in one word rather than 11 words, we're going to hold you to that, please, to accommodate those who we've set aside for you to slip in who you need. And I believe your traffic consultant is the person who needs to get out of here. Is that right? So guess what we're starting with? Traffic.
Thank you very much.
You just state your names for the record.
Jim Statiris. Jeff Kitteritz, VHB.
David DiCenzo.
Ken Graham, Bayside.
Excellent. Traffic.
Yeah, Ken Cram Bayside. I was not available to attend the last hearing, and I understand that there were some questions on the traffic, and I understand the board did its best to address those, and I'm just, here to answer any questions at this point. We've done a complete separate traffic study for 1695. We had the benefit of the previous peer review on 1699, so the traffic study addressed all of the peer review comments in terms of general procedures and what should be analyzed and what hours should be analyzed. And so basically, as Jeff has shown up there, we have the current site plan. We're going to have 72 parking spaces, which should be more than adequate for the proposed uses on the site. There were bike racks, landscaping, and the two driveways will provide in and out. And, they're analyzed to operate at an acceptable level of service overall. And, there will be, obviously impacts downstream, and the two additional intersections were analyzed were in Andover, Frontage Road and Daskin Road and Smith Way. And Smith Way has, ever since I permitted California Paints about 30-odd years ago, nothing's been done on Smith Way. And anyone who goes down there for either any of the industrial uses or if they're partaking of the services of Restaurant Depot and trying to turn left out of there during rush hour, they know they're going to experience some delays. And that's not changing. Sal Lipoli pulled his project for Andover for the site there right across from the signal on Frontage Road. So there are no improvements coming, and there's no signal at Smith Way proposed anymore. And all that was taken out of the traffic study. So that's kind of like a real brief synopsis. And if there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
All right, we'll start with Mr. Chairman.
I have no questions regarding the traffic study.
Mr. Fattaia.
All set, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Duffy.
I'm all set as well, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Ms. Lozano?
All set.
All right. I mean, your point being that we've now looked at several sites in that area. By all reason, I can't imagine a circumstance in which the select board decides to put them all there, which would be the only thing that would screw up the traffic. Any one of these traffic studies and in any one site that gets set up there, pretty much having the same effect, like I said, I'd be stunned if there's more than one, if one is even picked for up there. So I think for our consideration, as long as we're comfortable with any one of the traffic studies for any one of the projects, I think we've covered our bases in terms of how it'll work. Obviously, if lightning strikes and for some reason the select board would cite two up there, it's going to become their issue because, we've already dealt with the traffic for our purposes. They're going to have to consider traffic on a level different than we were looking at if they try to cite two places up there. So at least that's my view on it. So with that, I'll open it up to the audience. I'm just going to do this because you have to leave, just in case you have any questions. Anyone in the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns on traffic for this project please come up. Once, twice, sold. So that's it for traffic. You have fun on your way to Peabody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Not a problem.
I'll see you guys later.
All right, with that, we'll let you make the rest of your presentation.
Sure. And I'll try to keep this fairly quick as well. Just a quick refresher since we last met. No changes to the proposed site plan, what you see in front of you as last presented. So just some summary updates there. Since then, we have coordinated with engineering in response to some comments mostly related to the stormwater analysis and utility connections. We responded last week to one outstanding comment regarding materials for the proposed sewer pipe. And then we've also included, I'm going to flip to this graphic, one signage graphic in the last submission back to Alex, just documenting 3 areas of interest here. 2 of the freestanding monument signs. We reviewed the graphic last time. 1 at each driveway, both 15 feet plus away from the Shawshene Street right-of-way, and an enlargement of the building signage for the retail portion of the building, as shown.
That it?
And that's it. But happy to answer any other questions.
All right, so with that, I will start with Mr. Lazardi.
Actually, don't think I have any additional questions on this.
All right. Mr. Duffy?
So I guess the only thing that I'm sort of looking at here is the proximity to the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through entrance. Has that been addressed with engineering, or are you working with them with that, or?
Yes, that was one of the initial comments from their end, and what we've done since then was extending the sidewalk to provide a pedestrian refuge between the 2 driveways, and we've also widened a portion of the existing landscaping area between the 2 drives and the proposed connection.
So engineering was talking about a one-way in, one-way out. Is that something that's you're still working on, or is that something that?
We had looked at it. For the circulation of the lot, what that does is it creates some strain on the circulation by stranding some folks on the upper side. So part of that response was modifying this driveway instead to increase some of that separation.
Actually,
So we had preferred to do that in order to keep it
Was
two-way.
engineering amenable to that, or do you know, or do we have an answer to that yet?
That is
or?
my understanding.
Yeah, so it did resolve the comment, because part of the issue was that the existing Dunkin' Donuts driveway was actually encroaching onto 1695 Shawshene Street, but they have reconfigured it so the entire driveway stays on 1699, because at the moment, Mr. DiCenzo does own both properties, but in the future, if it weren't common ownership, then that could have created an issue, so they just decided to keep it all on the one lot there, so that it's not creating that, that issue.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Mr. Champa?
No questions for me at this time.
Mr. Vitale?
All set, Mr. Chairman.
All right. The chair is all set at this time. Anyone in the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns on this? Also going once, twice, sold. All right, so we have, I believe at this point, crossed almost all the Ts and dotted almost all the Is. We are left with one comment from engineering. This seems to be a relatively easy thing for you to take care of. Is that correct?
Correct, and
Ms.
Yeah, so
Lavin?
they did submit it to engineering last week, but the town engineer has not been able to confirm it,
So
but
what I'll
yes.
say is, we like to try to have everything buttoned up now and not leave these things out hanging, only because once we're done, you can't come back and ask us anymore. So if you feel comfortable that this is something you can satisfy for the town engineer, then I think we can close this out and move you to the next phase of this process. If the board's fine with that, because this seems pretty housekeeping to me. So with that, you've been provided a copy from Ms. Lauder, I suspect, of the recommended conditions. You have no issues with these. Is that correct?
Correct.
The board members are all set with these?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so we have 5 of them. Okay. So with that, what is the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we close the public hearing.
Motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. As to, what do we have here? Where'd it go? The site plan review and land, well, we'll do those separate. I like doing them separate, though. So for the site plan review, do you have a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the site plan review for 1695 Shawshene Street with the conditions noted, 1 through 5.
And then the one additional one of that they have to satisfy the
Yes.
town engineer outstanding issue. That's it? Okay. So we have that motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. As to the land disturbance permit, do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman, that we approve the land disturbance permit at 1695 Shawshene Street.
Motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. All right, good luck, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right, we will return to our regularly scheduled order, which is agenda item E, 1879 Main Street.
Hey, Dave.
I appreciate the indulgence of the rest of the hearings to let that happen. We just wanted to be cooperative a little bit with the request, so. Once you're settled, ladies, if you'd give your names for the record, we're all set.
For the record, I'm Mira Cousins with Civil Design Consultants.
Sarah Maggi-Moore, Trios Brewing Company.
So we're here requesting site plan review, special permit, and a land disturbance permit for the proposed overflow parking lot at 1879 Main Street. So since the last time we were here on June 12th, we made a handful of updates to the plans to address planning and DPW's review letters. So I'll just run through those updates that we made. So we've added 5 ADA spaces to comply with ADA regulations. We added 2 crosswalks spanning the width of the parking lot to provide pedestrian access from the parking space to the sidewalk. We've added a guardrail along the rear side of the parking lot to prohibit snow storage being plowed into the stormwater basin. We've added snow storage signs, and we submitted an erosion control plan as well as a lighting plan. So we submitted the revised plans and the response letters on July 7th. We received a review letter from DPW just a couple of hours ago. We've read the letter and have no issues with the majority of the comments. I believe there's only really 3 comments that need addressing. Out of the 3 comments, 2 comments we need clarification on, and that's comment number 9 and 11. So I just kind of want to go through those 2 comments. So comment number 9. So we submitted 2 sketches showing the existing and proposed impervious surface, and we're comfortable with what we submitted. So we need clarification from DPW on what exactly they don't agree with what we're showing on those sketches. Comment number 11 has to do with the stormwater management design. So because we have a reduction of impervious surface on site, this project is classified as a redevelopment project and therefore only needs to comply with the stormwater management standards to the maximum extent practicable. So we believe what we submitted complies with the redevelopment standards, and we need clarification from DPW as to why this comment still remains. So I just want to reiterate that we are removing 16,500 square feet of pavement area, which for comparison equates to about 100 parking spaces, which is a massive improvement to a site that's been vacant for decades. And lastly, we have submitted a waiver request letter that includes 4 waivers. So our goal tonight is to hopefully close the hearing with the condition that we resolve the remaining comments from DPW's review letter. So with that, happy to take any questions.
Okay, so before I open it up to the board, unlike the hearing that we just had, one of the comments you have, you're asking for clarification for, which means you're going to have a conversation with them, so we don't know where that's going in terms of how you're going to end up, whether it's they're going to stick to what they've said and you're going to have to comply with it, or they're going to agree with your assessment. The problem with that is that this isn't one where you're just saying, we're going to do what they asked us to do. If you're going to have a conversation about it, then I'm uncomfortable, and I'll leave it to the rest of the board members to decide, but I'm uncomfortable about closing the hearing, because then that closes off any discussion, because if the answer to it is, well, then we'll leave it up to the board. You don't have the board anymore to do that for whatever the outstanding issue might be, and you just are in a back and forth. So that's a problem. And then you have another comment, the same thing. You think what you submitted is fine. If they don't agree, which they, at this point, do not agree, we're in the same boat. So, I mean, I think it's less likely, and like I said, I'll leave it to this board, that we're gonna be able to close it out and leave things, and we've got, what do I have here? From Ms. Lau's letter, we've got 8 outstanding red items. Red items are bad when she sends us stuff in red, so.
Yeah, a lot of them were.
And I understand, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I think when you're having discussions about whether or not DPW or whoever's right, it's a different issue as to, oh, we agree with their comments, we'll take care of it and get the information in. This is exactly the thing we try to avoid, is having outstanding issues that then become a back and forth once the hearing's closed. So that's where you're in a little bit of a different position than the last one, where it's basically, it was a housekeeping issue, they wanted a change on the plan. That should be relatively simple. So that's sort of the other things you're talking about, so.
Right, and we just
Ms.
got
Lauder?
this letter.
Right. Yeah, no, I understand.
A couple
Ms.
hours
Lauder?
ago. Yeah.
No, just 2 clarifications. One, red does not mean bad, it just means I want to highlight it.
Yeah,
And second, some of the provisions here that need to either be clarified or worked on are a part of the general bylaw, Chapter 19, which is our stormwater management bylaw, and those provisions are not able to be waived by the board, so it's not necessarily, just specifically in this case, that closing the hearing means that, like, you know, everything's done and that's it. Because the stuff that they may need to work on may not be within the board's purview to make accommodations, basically. But certainly the point is well taken, that if something changes, and that means the plan changes a little bit to accommodate that, and it ends up creating another situation where the board has to exercise discretion, that's
Right,
well noted.
it's just more a
That's all.
matter of, it closes us off from the process at that point. So, like I said, if the other board members feel differently, that's fine. You know, we can discuss it then. I just wanted to throw it out as a starter here for where we're starting from.
So, Mr. Chairman, on my end, I would like to see it approved by the DPW and so forth, rather than leave it open.
Okay.
I'd like to,
Okay. All right, well,
myself.
since you already started, Mr. Fratelli, we're gonna start with you.
Okay, well, again, my questions are, where are we with those comments, and we're working on them, correct? DPW comments, you're working with those, on those, right?
Right, we just got that 2 hours ago.
Okay,
We did provide a response to their last
Yeah.
review letter.
I just seen this letter tonight when I came to the meeting at
Yeah,
7
same
o'clock,
here.
so time to review it, I don't have time to review it, but that's why I asked you.
Yep.
So let me ask you another question. I know there's a lot of issues back and forth about traffic on the site and in the parking lot, and getting back and forth from the site parking lot to the building. There's no discussion about a ramp going overhead, right?
Absolutely
ramp?
not, absolutely not.
Okay, yeah. Somebody asked me today, I'm like, a ramp over 38? And I'm like, I've never heard that, but I will clarify that tonight. So there is no ramp going over 38. So, but with that, I'm all set, Mr. Chairman, right now.
Okay, that was for the clarification of those at home. I get it now.
Yeah.
I was a little confused.
Yeah.
Okay, in the hopes that we stop seeing stuff like that online?
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Duffy?
I'm in agreement with Mr. Fatilia that we should get some of the engineering issues squared away. You know, the stormwater runoff and so forth are, those are pretty important to us, and, we would like to make sure that engineering is on board with those.
All right, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the notes that jumped out at me was that you have your ADA accessible parking spots in the rear third of the site. What are your thoughts about moving those up so that the people that need to park in those spots, we can save them a little bit of distance getting to the crossing?
So what we're fighting with is the floodplain. So the floodplain covers 2/3 of that parking lot. So we have to match the existing grades. If you look at the plan from the floodplain towards Main Street, and those are steep grades. It gets flatter to the left where we show the ADA spaces, and that was the reasoning for it. Based on the grades, we're really constrained with the existing grades.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Lazardi?
Yeah, just also kind of on the handicap spaces, wouldn't they be better off closer to the main building across the street? Is that a possibility?
So yeah, we emailed the building commissioner and we never got a response, talked to Alex about it, but I guess the reasoning was, we didn't know if it was a requirement or a preference. If it's a preference, we would prefer it to be on this overflow lot because we need 5 ADA spaces. If those spaces were on the main campus, you would lose regular spaces. And that would make people have to park in the overflow parking lot, have to cross the street. So we just felt like it makes sense to be on the overflow parking lot. We want to maximize the spaces on the main campus.
And we have several ADA parking spots at the main campus.
Other than that, I think I agree with the other board members about clarifying the DPW concerns. And that's all I have.
All right, so I made my feelings on getting stuff squared away already, so as far as, just so we can hopefully button this up the next time, once you've solved those, you saw the recommended conditions. We've seen your recommended, or your requested waivers. Anyone have any issues with the waivers? No?
Nope, but I do want to note a scrivener's error on the conditions. I had put a MassDOT State Highway Access Permit for water connection. That was a bad copy-paste job. My apologies. Obviously not a water connection, just clarify.
Got it, thank you.
We will take care of the scrivener's error between now and the next time, but other than that, you have any issues with the conditions that were on here? I'm sorry, Mr. Duffy?
I was going to say, are you asking us if we have a?
That was first,
waivers?
yeah.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I guess the only question I have is, I know you're looking for a waiver from the master signage plan requirement. Are you planning on ever putting a sign up
Yes,
there? So that would be, you'd be looking for just a separate
correct.
application and
Exactly.
hearing on that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm good with that. I don't have a problem with the planting waiver or the loading area. The waiver from the curbing requirement, I think I would like to refer that to engineering, I think, for the
I think-
stormwater runoff.
They're in favor of that,
Yeah.
of that waiver because they are going to have the water flowing into the detention basin in the rear of the property, and if there were curbing there, then the water cannot sheet the way it's supposed to. So they actually noted that they are in favor of that waiver, and it makes sense to them.
Okay. Good otherwise?
Yes,
All right,
thank you, Mr.
excellent.
Chairman.
All right, so at least you know, we're, you know, if we get everything squared away, then next time we should be all set on those. The one thing I would say is, you know, because we were talking about the, just out of curiosity, on your current site, under your current operations, are all of your ADA spaces used all the time? Are they full, or do you have them empty? You know, even though your parking lot's full, are they actually empty, or are they being used?
I mean, our business fluctuates, so they're available, but the only people that can use them are those who are permitted
Right,
for
that's my
ADA,
question.
so
What I'm saying is, are they already all filled up all the time?
I wouldn't say so, but I haven't done a study specifically on those spots.
All right. So, if you wouldn't mind, when you come in the next time, just, you know, have a little bit of an answer for that, just from what you've observed, only because it goes to Ms. Lai's point, which is, I'm fine, and I suspect the other boys would, if, you know, if those aren't constantly filled up all the time, then I can see why having them over on the overflow lot is fine. But if you're running out of that space every time, all the time, and you're almost guaranteed that you're gonna have to send people across the street, now it starts to become a question of whether or not there really needs to be some more on-site. That's why I'm asking.
I can solidly say they are not completely full all the time.
All right, so I think that would probably take care of what, you know, splitting up the site, the ADA spaces to the two sites, that's fine, at least for me. So, but that was why I wanted to ask the question, so. With that, I'll open up to the audience. Anyone in the audience with questions, comments, or concerns on this? I'll send you over to the podium. Once you get over there, if you'd, yep, well, any way you want to go, it's fine. Once you get there, if you just give your name and your address for the record, then the floor is yours.
My name is Bob Kelly. I stepped up tonight to express...
Mr. Kelly, I'm sorry, could I just grab your address too?
Yeah, it's Mill Street. I stepped up to raise some concerns about this project and this proposal. I submitted a letter to you, Mr. Johnson, with attachments going over the issues the Treehouse had in other locations that they put breweries in. And I've been a resident of this town for more than 50 years, and I've been involved in a lot of things that you guys have been in committees and so forth, trying to make sure we do the right things for our townspeople. I think this kind of decision of creating a parking lot across the main brewery is going to cause tremendous traffic problems, pedestrian-wise and vehicular traffic. As you saw on my attachments, if you haven't seen them, the Charlton operation was a disaster from the get-go because of so much traffic and congestion there. They had to redo the roadway there in Charlton, which is a major road. That's Route 20. That's a major state highway, secondary highway. And they had to do a lot of major changes there. And if you saw the pictures that were in the newspapers of people standing in line, customers going in there, and cars in those streets and the traffic accidents they had there, we're facing a real problem here with this. They don't need another 100 parking spaces to run this operation. It's just egregious, it's aggressive development that we don't need in this town. I've seen traffic and I've seen growth in this town. Some of it's been good, a lot of it's been good, a lot of it's really changed the character of this community. And I'm concerned about that. It's a quality of life issue for people in this community, that we get caught and stuck in traffic and safety issues on Route 38, which is a major highway for us that crosses across all the towns in this neighborhood up here in the valley. So it's really important that we do the right thing here. We can't move too quickly to try to get this done for the benefit of a brewery. Not that I disagree with breweries, because you can see from my size, I like beer. But, you know, I really think this is the wrong decision for us to do. Pedestrian traffic, walking across near Livingston Street, and heavy traffic, whether it's soccer going down there, or football, and kids going back and forth, and bikes and so forth. It's just a disaster as far as I'm concerned. You know, make a decision today, we can't ever take it back, okay? And when I look at this proposal, I know what they did out in the mitigate out in Charlton, and they want to put in turning lanes for your last board meeting or planning meeting. Put in turning lanes and pedestrian lights and so forth. I can only see that being a real problem for us on 38. In peak seasons of the brewery, as well as the golf, and just people just in general doing traffic going up and down Main Street. So I have a lot of concerns here. I hope you're going to take this under advisement, get traffic studies done here, get the state of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth Department of Transportation involved here, because it's real important. We cannot just approve this thing as a perfunctory decision by this board. We must do the right thing for this town and the people of this town. And this is something we're not going to be able to take back or be with us forever. They will be here forever, I'm sure, because it's a signature brewery, and it's a great beer, I guess, and I haven't been there yet, but what I'm saying is that I think we just can't move forward quickly on this. We've got to do the right studies and involve our townspeople, the peoples of Eagles Landing, who are going to be inundated by traffic and parking down there, and noise. So we haven't done the right things here. If you looked at what happened in Charlton, they had problems in Sandwich, and there are going to be problems here. Thank you.
Mr. Kelly? Any comments? I wasn't really a question, but I don't know if I have any comments. No? Okay.
I wish you had a solution, Mr. Chairman, but I don't know if we have a solution.
Oh, we have somebody else? Yeah, oh, absolutely. You snuck up on me a little bit, so it's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You can pull that down if you need. There you go.
Thank you. My name is Donna Marie Robital, 527 Shawshene Street. I was nervous coming here tonight because I don't want to be against anything, and I wasn't sure if anybody else would be here. I don't think there's anything more I could add except to say, please not tonight. And because I so much agree with them, I guess I do want to add that it is Route 38. It is a major road. They named it Main Street to accommodate us because, you know, in reality, everything we have is there. We have such a great town. We've grown so much. The first 10 years, the next 10 years, maybe, you know, everything's going to be great in the next 10 years. It's just such a great town. I don't want to bring up how dangerous Main Street is, because it's nobody's fault. We've had such accidents there. That's not right to do to people that have had those things happen, but it's a dangerous road. When you go to Woburn, you know, like, I think we want, I'm sorry I'm going on and on, but I think Tewksbury would like to see maybe the kind of place we can keep crossing from place to place. That's just perfect, but we're not set up that way. So like when we go to Woburn, you might think they're really polite, because when you go from like, say, Main and Shawshene over to the treehouse, there'd be like already 4 crosswalks. I don't know, it's still the same state road, but we don't do it that way in Tewksbury. So even the kids, if they're at Burger King and one wants to go to, or a grown-up, they don't really walk down to Main and Shawshene all the time and do the right thing for themselves. You know, if there's no car coming, or walk down by the treehouse where we finally have a crosswalk, and with the turn. And the other thing is, so like if you do walk and you're on Main and Shawshene, you just, I know this isn't against the treehouse, it just has to do with Main Street traffic, and the way kids get to go out with their bikes and walk, and all of us get to, and it's such a great area with the park, and Eagles Landing, when that came in, that was supposed to be so that they could do this very thing. Enjoy that walk and have it all coexist with the golf club and the country club and all the treehouse. But, oh, sorry, I was getting a little...
That's quite all right, take your time.
I was getting a little...
Take a breath, it's
I was
okay.
getting a little off, because I didn't want it to sound like a blame game against the treehouse, but like when you cross to go from Shawshene over to Market Basket, the kids get to, adults cross, but the other traffic coming from Shawshene and the other can still turn. Legally, they turn, right? But you walk. They're supposed to be watching, you're supposed to be watching, but it's already difficult. It's, you know, the way it's set up, cars can really, you know, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but you're coming down Shawshene from Market Basket, you're a car, you get to turn on the same light that people get the walk sign from, because that's the way, you know, traffic lights are set up. That's just the way it goes. You know, you hit the walk sign, you wait, you go. I mean, I see kids, and you know, you run ahead and try to make it, or the car stops when they see you. Fortunately, cars pay attention, but they're all accidents, so no driver or no one that ever got hit meant for that to happen. So I'm not blaming the treehouse. I'm sorry I was rambling. My main thing is, how many parking spots and why? Why does the country club not need them? And 100 cars, that's 100 pounds crossing. And maybe 2 people, maybe more than 100 people. I don't get it. I'm sorry I'm acting like we're just in my house and I'm yelling, but
No, it's
I
quite
wish
all
I
right.
said it like the gentleman before me.
No, thank you.
Just begging you, please. Thank you.
All right, so for clarification, we've already decided that we won't be making a final decision tonight, so that's not something you have to worry about. I think the last 2 people both asked that same thing, so we are at least kicking this to our next hearing before anything happens. Obviously, we had the submission from Mr. Kelly and the comments this evening. I can go around the board again. You know, I appreciate the concerns. Obviously, if people are pressing the button to cross at Shawshene and Main Street and they're not all going red, something's wrong. Somebody has to check that, because nobody should be able to turn at the same time that the cross lights are on. So if that's actually happening, then someone's got to check that. If the buttons are being pressed, then that's not happening. You know, with this, I know from what I've looked at, you know, one of the things that will be improved here is that strange crosswalk that we have that goes from like kitty cornered across the entire intersection of Main Street would be removed as part of this, and you'd get the cross where you'd actually go from where this parking lot would be right to the other side of the street. Also keeping in mind, we don't control everything about Main Street, because as has been pointed out, it's a state highway in which they have a lot of decisions as to whether or not things can or can't be done and how they have to be done. We really don't get those decisions. So, you know, some of this is up to Mass Highway as to what they're okay with or not okay with, or how they want things to be. That's out of our hands. So that becomes an issue between the petitioner and them. So, you know, while we may or may not want to ask for certain things, then they're not always within our control. I think, as everybody's seen recently, there is a need for the parking that's being requested here. I don't think, you know, when we discussed this the last time, you know, I don't know if we had a full appreciation for seeing, you know, the facility up and running. But now that you've seen the facility up and running, there are things going on right now without this parking lot in existence that would appear to me to be people parking in places that are not part of Treehouse right now. Not within their control, but, and how that gets dealt with is, a different pay grade than mine. But that already occurs, and is occurring right now, it would appear, because I see people that are crossing the street from places that are not Treehouse on their way towards Treehouse. So I don't think there's a question about whether or not there's a need for this in terms of the surrounding businesses, who, if they're losing parking because someone's parking in their place and going elsewhere, problematic for them. We want all the businesses to succeed, don't want one hurting another, inadvertently in any way. So, I don't think there's a question, at least for me, that this is something that is, in need. Also, this site, as long as I've lived here, has been a derelict funland or whatever, fun something. And, I mean, you drive down Main Street, which is supposed to be our prime road through our town, and that's what you've seen for 20 years, or thereabouts. So, there is a benefit to the town to having this developed, but in a way that's not adding another business. It's simply alleviating a concern for a business that at least, at present appears successful, which is a benefit to the town. My opinion's only, it doesn't mean, we can't look at anything that's been submitted and, talk about it, but that's just where I come down on it. And for those reasons, that's where I sit. So I don't know if any of the members have any further comment on anything that's been added during the public portion. If you do, feel free, let me know.
Just one comment, which is, and I'm sure you and more veteran board members, I noticed Mr. Fowler is visiting tonight, but I really don't like that our citizens, our residents' safety is essentially in the hands of the state agency. And we're relying on, we understand the need, we're the customers. We want the parking lot. I want to be fair to our other businesses, like a chairman said, but at the same time, if that crosswalk isn't done just right, there's nobody at MassDOT that has to attend the funeral or visit the hospital for whoever got hurt. So that's something that just bothers me, and I'm not sure what our interaction is with MassDOT, other than, I know my own personal interactions have kind of been, you can send information up all you want, they'll let you know what they're going to do regardless. I don't know if they really consider the information that we might have here, but would we want something similar to what we had across from the Trahan and now with the Center Elementary, where you hit a walk light and you now have flashing lights, so that kind of everybody in every direction knows people are crossing? Are there going to be peak times when you have an event, which is what you said this was proposed for, where we're going to have just a constant flow of people hitting those walk lights for a half hour, and if that's at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, what's that going to do, backing all the way up into the Shawshene and Main Street intersection, and then past Donna's Donuts, and then so on and so forth? People can't get out onto Carolus, and now people are trying to go past the South Street Fire Station to find an alternate way through Billerica to get into town. So MassDOT is going to have a huge impact on how this works, and I don't like that we don't know what that's going to be before we make our decision.
True.
Which is not your fault at all. That's just the hand that we've been dealt.
Anyone else?
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Duffy?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I mean, I definitely agree with the residents' concerns about traffic, and unfortunately, if you go to Billerica or Stoneham or Woburn or any other town, there's a lot of traffic. But, having, and I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think on our initial approval for you guys, we are doing another traffic study 6 months in and 12 months in. Would we be approaching that 6 months?
Absolutely.
Pretty soon, I would think. I'm not quite sure when that is, but
For clarification, the 6-month and 12-month increments were after everything was operational, so that the to-go operation, the golf course, and the main clubhouse were all online. And my understanding, we know that the main clubhouse only just came online last month, and the golf followed thereafter. So the 6-month clock has started just about in the last couple of
Yeah,
weeks.
that's-
So
that's
I think by the holidays, we'll probably see that first traffic study.
And at that point, I would assume that we would be able to address, again, any concerns, that if there were some substantial changes from initial traffic studies.
If I'm not mistaken, we retained that when we did it, correct? So I would suggest we do the same thing here, that we retain that so that we can fold them together.
Yes, that's what I've included in the proposed conditions, that once this parking lot comes online, similarly, it'll be a 6-month and a 12-month, and that was at the recommendation of the engineering division, based on the past approval.
Right, and I would like to add that, obviously, we're in favor of redeveloping that site. It's an eyesore and it's a hazard. But it makes you wonder, each customer that goes into your business right now is in a vehicle, basically. Have you ever considered some type of carpooling recommendation, bringing a transit in with customers, that type of thing? Because if you're overflowing now, which you are, that doesn't leave a lot of room down the road for any kind of growth, really.
We would very much encourage people to carpool, absolutely.
Do you have
We
some
also
kind of an active
we're on
program
public.
now, or is that something you just?
I'm not sure that we have the ability to organize a carpooling program for our guests, but we very much encourage it.
But you know what, to Mr. Duffy's point, though, you have your website. Somewhere on that website, I suspect there's some comment about parking.
Sure.
And if there isn't now, there will be if you get the satellite lot. I would think at that point, having something included in the parking section that says, we encourage, I don't know how the wording is, I'm not gonna come up with the wording. But,
Yep.
whether it says carpool, or, groups coming to, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But something that sort of addresses what Mr. Duffy's talking about.
We can do that.
I don't think would be amiss, because if you're saying that it's something you would encourage, putting it out there for someone to see when they, hit the website probably isn't the worst idea.
Absolutely, that is something.
Mr. Duffy, does that
Yeah, thank you
sound
for the
about-
suggestion.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
I appreciate it.
It seems like also, Mr. Chairman, if you had a location where people were parking and you could do a shuttle service from that location to Treehouse, might alleviate some parking as well, rather than doing a carpool thing. At 1 o'clock, you have a shuttle from the Park and Ride on Route 38, on 93 and East Street up there, and we're going to Treehouse at 1 o'clock, at 2 o'clock, and going back at 4 and 5.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. That's a you guys thing. I don't think that's.
No, not
yeah,
for
'cause
us,
we have
no.
no control for that, but that's, just places that, it sort of works the same way. There's a shuttle that comes in, picks people up in the Market Basket parking lot to go to, is it the State Hospital? Or, I'm not sure where it is, but I know I've seen them before. So obviously they're picking up and then, going elsewhere, but, if that's something, again, just to give people thoughts of other things they can do.
Thank you.
But,
And you could actually, I'm thinking just to get out in front of the problems, the traffic problems that are obviously developing there, that it might be a good idea to try to, try to develop some kind of a program that's going to mitigate some of the traffic concerns of the residents as well.
Thank you.
yeah, just quickly though, because you were up once, so go ahead.
Thank you. May I just ask a question through you to be answered at another time even?
You may.
I'm just confused that if you have a building, you have an occupancy permit for that building, then you have parking accordingly.
Mhm.
I understand about additional parking for events, but my question is, if you have an occupancy permit for a building and you have parking, where are we going from here? Like, I don't want to say anything else, like, just saying, like, are you growing from there, and how does that work if you have a permit? How do you live by that accordingly? Thank you.
Thank you. so, I think I understand the question. They meet the requirements for the required parking. So that gives them the ability to have the facility and do what they do. In this case, they're asking for an ability to use another site to develop the parking lot, and that's part of basically the decision that the board's gonna make is that request reasonable? And is it in the benefit of the town for, there could be for different reasons for different members, but overall, is it a benefit to the town for, and I'm just throwing out possible reasons that, for safety, for, revenue, for, there are a bunch of different possibilities that would fulfill that requirement. And then it really becomes a decision of whether or not to grant it or not. I mean, they could continue to operate on the site with what they have, but they see themselves needing more, and then it becomes a question for us to answer, based off their request, to do this parking lot that's across the street. So, I mean, I don't know if I can answer it any better, so I think that kind of gives you the reasoning. All right, so with that...
I just had one last comment. You are very close to an LRTA stop, which is right in front of McDonald's. You could maybe advertise and promote that and offer a link to the LRTA website, either for that specific route so people know where to get it, or just to promote it in general, that you are a commuter-friendly brewery and accessible by multiple means. To play devil's advocate,
yes.
If we don't put this parking lot in, would we be more likely to look at a Charlton situation where if they were hosting a big event, now we have people backed up on Livingston Street, 38, and so forth, waiting to get into the parking lot, circling around, waiting for a space, so on and so forth?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it's not really, it's speculative in that, they're saying they think they need it. Obviously, us granting it or not granting it and what effects may or may not happen from that, it's all, based off what we think from what they've presented and what whatever we make our decision based on. I mean, at some point, I suppose, if you keep showing up and you can't park, you'll stop showing up. I mean, I don't know, I'm not sure who that benefits, you know what I mean, in the long run, but, you could theoretically, make the problem consistently a problem without it, I suppose. But I don't know, that's up for us to decide, I guess. So, all right, so with that, we already discussed we're going to continue this to our next meeting, so we have 7 p.m. Do I have a motion to continue 1879 Main Street to 7 p.m. on the 21st?
So moved.
Motion made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. All right, we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
All right. That brings us to agenda item F, which is 1600 Shawshene Street. This is also continued from our last meeting. Once you guys settle, if you just give your names for the record, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Daniel Moore with National Development.
And Heather Monacup with Greenman Peterson, traffic engineer for the project.
So we'll be efficient. We're returning from our June planning board meeting. We are still working with the town engineer department to address the reviews. We think we can efficiently do those and come to a sufficient resolution prior to an August meeting. One item that we are looking for additional clarification on is the requirement of a peer review. So there is a note in the engineering review that if required, we would bear the expense for a peer review. I know there was some discussion amongst the planning board on our last visit in June as to whether it would be required or the concurrent submissions of traffic studies in the general area could be sufficient or cross-compared. Our traffic consultant, GPI, has compared all of those traffic studies to our own and found consistencies in conclusion. So I'll turn that over to Heather to speak to that in more detail.
Yeah, so again, we want to respond to all the comments. One of the comments is, possibly the need for a peer review. So we did submit a letter. As part of our traffic study, we included both 1693 Shawshene Street and 1699 Shawshene Street in our traffic study. We took a closer look at those traffic studies to find out their conclusions. And again, they basically say no significant impact or minimal, or impacts are nominal and no mitigation measures necessary. So our traffic study found the same thing. We looked at the same study area intersections for the most part. And so we're just thinking that if 3 different consultants came up with 3 similar things, is there a need for further peer review? So we're here tonight asking, what is the pleasure of the board on that?
You're stealing my line.
I know, you say it so much.
All right, so we'll start with Mr. Fratelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think traffic is traffic is traffic, and I don't see the need for another study being done. You're close proximity to the other locations. They're saying that there's no problems. I don't know if I agree with them sometimes, but it pacifies somebody's payment. So, but with that being said, I don't think there's another need for another traffic study. I think we're good with that, and if we can get those issues resolved with DPW and engineering, we'll probably be able to vote next meeting maybe. So, but I'll say, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ciampa.
I agree with Mr. Fratelli's comments. I think we've probably studied the traffic in this small stretch of land, small stretch of roadway, probably to the highest degree of any area in the town. So I have no further questions, and I see no need for a peer review. And I agree with Mr. Fratelli, we just need the engineering comments addressed.
Mr. Lozari?
Likewise.
Mr. Duffy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also don't have a problem with waiving a traffic peer review, but I just do have a question on the easement issue.
Sure.
If you could give, or maybe that's better for you. No, okay. So if I'm looking at a letter from an attorney to not, to not hear, until this issue was resolved. Has there been some resolution in this, or?
So we're coordinating with their team on both ends, understanding the underlying nature of those easements. We continue to discuss this internally and with them. It's not something we've resolved. Our opinion is that this is more of a private matter between landowners rather than a zoning or land use discussion. So we intend to continue the entitlement process concurrently, but it's not something that we've closed out or we found a resolution with the abutters on.
I guess I don't know the answer.
Oh, I can keep going from there if you want.
Okay, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
So, thank you, Mr. Duffy. So, I see what Mr. Duffy's asking about. I mean, for us, it's not, we're not going to get in the middle of a landowner, issue between landowners. I'll say this, though, that we continue the process, we end the process, and then whatever agreement you end up with them causes something to change, then you have to come back in here. We have to not start all over again, but you're back to advertising and all that, because if it's a big enough issue and it's not a minor change that we can hear as an administrative thing, the fact that we finished means you're going to have to bring this back as something, a full process again for us to change whatever we finish up with. So that becomes, to me, a petitioner issue. If you want us to continue and make a decision, we'll make a decision on what's in front of us. How that affects your private matter is between you and the other landowner, and doesn't become our problem again unless it's a problem for you in which you can't do what we approved because of whatever agreement you make with the other landowner, knowing of course that they know we're done when they talk to you. So that's your decision. So if you want us to continue and make a decision, you don't have to answer right now because obviously there's some outstanding stuff you're going to be coming back. But when we get to the point where we're at the point of making a decision one way or another, I'm going to ask you again, what you want us to do, and you can let us know, and then we'll make our decision by, based on that. I mean, we took the letter, obviously, we know about it, but it doesn't change how we go about our business one way or the other. It doesn't put a hold on this unless they do something that some court tells us we can't move forward. We're going to make our decision, and then it's up to you to deal with after that, okay?
Understood, acknowledged, and priority on our end to come to resolution with the neighbors as well. So not something that we intend to shy away from. And if we do come to a decision, understood that it would be impacted if for some reason we can't come to a resolution.
All right, okay. So then with that, I'll open up the audience. Anyone in the audience with questions, comments, or concerns on this at this time? If you do, come on up to the podium, give your name and your address. Floor is yours.
My name is Virgil Lambrod Jr., 1500 Shawshene Street, the direct abutter for the project. It was our attorney that sent in the letter. It's an 1.5 acres of easements that are being affected.
If you wouldn't mind just lifting the mic up just a little bit.
Sure. We don't see it as a small matter. It's an 1.5 acres of easements that directly affects the plans that are being submitted. Plans that currently can't exist without any resolution to these easements.
So let me just do this, because the longer, if we keep going down the road, it won't be litigated here, is basically what, the same thing I told them. All we can go on is what's in front of us, what they've asked us to review, and what we'll make our decision on. How that does or doesn't affect you, it is not really going to be a concern for the board, in that if in some way that becomes a problem for you, that's a problem for you guys to deal with. This isn't an issue of, our decision having effect on traffic or something like that, that's to the town. This is going to be a dispute between you guys that you have to sort out. It's not going to affect whether or not we make the decision or not on what's in front of us.
So let me understand, so if you make a decision based on something knowing that it rightfully violates our easements, that doesn't get taken into consideration?
All we can do is look at what's in front of us that they presented. If we make a decision on it and it in some way becomes an issue between private landholders, it's an issue between private landholders. It's not for the board to deal with.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
No, the only point of clarification I wanted to make is that if the plans that they present to us make certain assumptions about resolution of the issues regarding the easements, but as Mr. Chairman noted, how that gets resolved substantially affects the project, they're going to be right back in front of us again for a new public hearing, because what they presented pending resolution of conflicts with easements no longer works. So it's not that we don't care or that it's not of concern, it's just it's not something we can control. We can only control what they presented to us, and what they presented to us is predicated on those being resolved. And if they are, and you guys reach an agreement, then great, that plan stands. But if there's a conflict and you don't reach an agreement, or you reach a different agreement, then they have to come back and request a modification with a new public hearing.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you. Anyone else with any questions, comments, or concerns on this one? All right, bring it back to the board. So, obviously we have outstanding issues, and...
Need a motion to continue?
Yes. So, we have 7:05.
So I'd like to make a motion to continue this item to...
One at a time.
We got to do one at a time, so.
I'd like to make a motion to continue the 1600 Shawshene Street application to 7:05 on our August meeting.
All right, motion made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. That brings us to 1600 Shawshene Street, Lot 2, which is our G hearing. So same, again, because they're separate, if you just give your names again.
Daniel Moore with National Development.
Heather Monica with Greenman Peterson, the traffic engineer for the project.
Okay.
And as an adjacent development to the previous project discussed, we are working through resolution and agreement of the engineering report submission to us, which we intend to do so prior to our August meeting. For clarification's sake, there is a note on that one regarding bearing the expense of a traffic study should be required, and we would look for clarification from the board as to whether a traffic study peer review would be required for the Lot 2 development at 1600 Shawshene.
Okay, I suspect we had the same decision we had for the other
Yes,
69.
no peer review.
Same here.
So that takes care of that. You remain with your outstanding engineering things that you have to deal with. Therefore, I will take a motion to continue this till 7:10 on the August 21st.
So moved.
Motion made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
What was the date for that August?
21st. No problem. All right, that moves us to agenda item I, which is 89 East Street, also continued from our 6:26 meeting. Once you're settled, if you give your names for the record, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Patrick Nichols, president of Bella Luna.
Kirsten Braun, traffic engineer with Chapel Engineering.
Jim Hanley, civil design consultants.
Floor is yours.
So we did a traffic study peer review, and Kirsten is going to bring that up now.
So we did receive a peer review letter last week that we were able to respond to. There was just a handful of comments really on the traffic study that we were able to address. I'll just quickly run through what the outstanding comments were and what our responses were. The first comment was to include the intersection of East Street and Whitmore Street in our analysis, and which we did include that. We performed counts at that intersection, and what we found is that the project-related traffic impacts at that location were also minimal, similar to the other intersections that we studied. There was another comment that we should include 2020 traffic data, or crash data rather, into our analysis. Originally, we included 2015 to 2019. The most recent set of data does have 2020 on the Mass DOT website, but we had originally omitted that because COVID impacted traffic volumes, and so we thought it wouldn't have been a great representation. We did collect that 2020 data though, and it did show obviously fewer crashes than the data we had before, so we don't see any significant traffic safety issues out there. One of the other comments was regarding trip generation. The peer review consultant wanted us to include any trips associated with the office space within the facility, also the storage space. So we did break down the trip generation, and all this information too was included in our updated study that we provided last week. So we did break down our trip generation to separate it out into retail dispensary, storage space, as well as office space, and we reran analysis, and we also found out, similar to our original analysis, that the project really doesn't have any major traffic impacts. There were two more comments also pertaining to whether or not upon opening that we would need any sort of parking or traffic management from the police chief or the Tewksbury Police Department. We will coordinate with the police department to see if they see that fit for upon opening of the store. And additionally, they also suggested a couple of transportation demand management measures, which are aimed to promote less dependency on independent vehicles. So we also are going to look into some of those measures. The applicants agreed to do that, and those measures include, bike racks to encourage, which we're already providing to encourage bicycle travel, promoting carpooling between employees, things of that nature. So that's also included in the updated traffic study. But aside from that, those were the only comments that were brought up by the peer review consultant.
So with that being said, they did have a handful of comments relative to the site plan, so we put together a revised set of plans and a response letter, just itemizing what we changed. For the most part, really was just kind of housekeeping, very minor stuff. I'll just kind of run through our response letter. One thing that they asked for was an auto turn plan of vehicles coming in and going out. The only thing we'd say to that is that, you know, this is a site plan that was approved like 30 years ago, give or take. It's adequately serviced the use that's in that building now, so we just asked for consideration to not need that. We don't think it's needed for this specific use. If it were a new parking lot, we'd definitely do it. We'd show you what, but it's clearly working in servicing the units. They also asked us to provide a stop bar at the exit, which we've done, along with a stop sign, so that's in there as well. Plans. We've added a site specific to signage, that all signage should meet the manual on uniform traffic control devices. They asked us to provide a sight triangle, and you can see that on the plan on the top left. Basically, that's where the driver's eye is relative to the exit when they stop at the stop bar, looking in both directions. The only thing we have in that area, I believe there's one utility pole and then the stop sign, so there really is nothing in there. But we provided it, and we provided a note on the plan saying that if snow is stored in excess of, I think it's 3.5 feet, that needs to be knocked, 2.5 feet, it needs to be knocked down. They also asked for some information on the loading area, the delivery schedule, and general operational procedures. We kind of got into that in detail last time around. I think you had firsthand testimony from one of Patrick's colleagues about how that works, so we'd look for relief from that. We provided the bike rack that they asked for. They asked for some striping on Lumber Lane. We don't control Lumber Lane. If it's something that is needed, then, you know, we would consider it, but I think it just got paved like literally last week anyhow, so, but anyhow, those are the really minor comments that we provided last week. So at this point, we think we've addressed everything from DPW, from planning, as well as from the peer review. We provided you with this information, and we're hoping that we can potentially close the hearing tonight.
We don't have.
I provided proposed waivers and conditions at the last meeting. The two waivers noted were from section 6111C, the provision that states that paved surfaces must, other than access driveways, may not be within 20 feet of the property line, and where they're locating their loading area, that was discussed last time. And then section 6210H, which is the requirement for a master signage plan. They intend to utilize the existing multi-tenant sign and put a wall sign that is compliant with the bylaw. And then the only other condition was the contribution to the sidewalk fund in the amount of $11,224.27, which is proportional to the square footage space that they plan to occupy in the building in relation to the linear footage around the building on public ways.
Okay, all right. All right, we'll start with, actually, one question. The first thing you said, number one, or I guess it's number two.
Number two, yep.
The part you said they wanted you to show, what was it again?
You know how we do the auto turn for the fire trucks as they come in and out? My understanding was what they asked for was that specific to the passenger cars going in and out, utilizing the spaces.
Okay, but you did one for the fire engine, right?
I don't believe we did for this. I mean, it was an existing use, and the way we followed what we've done in the past for this exact use for previously built sites.
My question is going to be, and I'll just do it now instead of waiting until to be the fifth person, is if it was last approved in 1991, whatever the biggest vehicle that the fire department has now probably didn't exist in 1991, correct?
That's a fair point, but as Mr. Hanley noted, the fire department has not made an issue of any other pre-existing sites, and they kind of understand that if they're not making any material changes, then what's there now is what's going to exist, and it's served thus far. In an ideal world, of course, every site would be brought up to current code, but if they're not making any changes to what's already there, then they're willing to live with what's already there.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, basically, if the fire department's fine, and they feel comfortable that their vehicles are fitting there, then there's no vehicle driven by a person that shouldn't be able to get in and out of there. Is that, I mean, that seems to be just sort of obvious, so, okay. All right, with that, we'll go with Mr. Ciampa.
So I guess I'll just say great minds think alike. That was exactly my point, was the fire truck equipment is probably different than it was 30 years ago. But if that's the view of TFD for this, I'm certainly not going to stand in the way and require it. So That being said, I have no questions at this time.
All right, Mr. Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think that the applicants have adequately addressed all of my concerns. And again, as far as the parking lot, I mean, it's, you have to, assume that it met the building code at the time it was constructed and met the requirements then. So, and with no changes being made, I'm okay. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for doing the peer review on the traffic study. Did just have one question specifically around comment 4 and the square footage calculation there. What would be the delta between kind of the formula that you proposed here and if you did just a marijuana dispensary model for the entire 5,425 feet?
I'd have to calculate that out. I don't have that off the top of my head. I mean, it wouldn't be much different. This really just provides a more, technically these ancillary uses are, for the dispensary itself, which is, it's typical practice to apply to the retail space because, the offices are for employees that would already be counted in the trip generation rates for that retail space. But we just wanted to make sure that we accounted properly for any kind of, this is a conservative way to do it. It's a large space that isn't going to be used predominantly for the retail area. So if anything, it provides a conservative assessment. We don't typically apply to those trip generation rates to the whole size of the building or the space within the building.
All right, cool. I just, the reason I ask is because even some of the other kind of dispensaries that you cited in that peer review, they do include like the break rooms and things in their calculation. But if the delta's not large there, if it's relatively in the ballpark, then
All right.
that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Fratello.
Just a couple questions I have. Reviewing the last meeting, which I was not here, the notes, so was I under the impression that the retail space is only going to be 600 square feet, Patrick?
Yeah, so we estimated about 1,000. We rounded up for the study. But yeah, it's mostly going to be back of the house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that rather small for a retail space, or?
No, not at all. For the sales floor only, no.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
All right. So the other discussion I had was, I know you discussed sidewalks last time, Mr. Hanley. And the fee in lieu of amount was $11,000, that's it?
Correct, yep.
All right. Seems awful small to me, but I mean, can't do much with $11,000 these days.
Yeah, I guess they applied the fee for all the project frontage, but then prorated that based on the footprint in the building, which, from our perspective, is a fair way to approach it, and we agreed to make the.
Because I was going to propose a use of not putting that $11,000 into the fund and utilizing that money to provide sidewalks adjacent to the site on East Street for the neighbors there. Very similar to what we did on, 917 East Street, if you remember. That didn't come to fruition, that site, but, we were going to try to use the funds that were waive the sidewalk requirement and use the funds to provide sidewalks on the other side of the street. I don't see too many people walking on this particular frontage either, but $11,000 is not a lot of money, but probably cost you that much for a permit these days. So, any comments, Ms. Lauder?
No, I was only going to note that they intend to occupy about 8.3% of the entire building, so that's the proportion that we're looking at, and yeah, that probably wouldn't even cover mob demob, honestly, so.
I'm all set.
Okay. The chair is all set as well. So I'll open up the audience. Anyone in the audience with questions, comments, or concerns? Once, twice, back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we close the public hearing.
All right, motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. We'll go with waivers first. So the waivers, as discussed by Ms. Lauder earlier, we have two. So we have a motion on the two waivers.
A motion to approve the waivers as discussed earlier.
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. As to the site plan review.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we approve the site plan review at 890 East Street.
All right, we have a motion made. Second. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. All right, good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Next step. moving on to agenda item J. 890 East Street. I'm sorry, 2186 and 2196 Main Street. I didn't cross it off, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
All right, once everyone's settled, just give your names for the record. The floor is yours.
Tim Graffio, 52 Pinnacle Street, president of Carbondale.
Hillary Holmes, Langen Engineering, civil engineer.
Rick Morse, architecture, EL.
Massimo Polanco, Langen Engineering, traffic engineer.
I'm Rebecca Adams.
All right.
1620.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. Do you want me to just jump in? Okay, great. Again, my name is Rebecca Adams. We have been here, obviously, before. Here this evening with the entire team from Carbonair. And this evening, I'll just briefly describe the project and the status of the submitted required documentation. I know it's been a long night for everyone. We have revised the architectural drawings, which Rick will review with everyone here this evening. And Maximo and Hillary will provide information regarding the traffic report and the site plan drawings and comments from engineering. I just wanted to let everyone know we've worked extensively to provide a comprehensive application. We have met the special permit criteria per the town's bylaws. And our team worked very closely with the town engineer, Mr. Stack, and Captain Sawicki to ensure a thoroughly engineered design. And then, of course, we incorporated your comments as well as neighbors' requests and comments to enhance the building's aesthetics and to hopefully create a welcoming environment for the community. We would like to also just like to thank Alex for all of her assistance through the process. And we received our last comments from the drawings on July 10th. And we do not have any issues with the comments, and we can satisfy the requests of the comments. And I'll just hand it off to Rick. We do have up above on the slideshow the renderings as well as some of the drawings that will be discussed.
Correct.
You should be able to just hit it. Oh, there it is.
Can you view it in full? Just gonna, that's fine. So since we last met, we responded to the comments from the board, and primarily Mr. Johnson asked us to give some attention to the gable ends of the building, which were, more of a blank wall. So what we've done is applied a barn aesthetic. So at the northwest end of the building, we have like a ladder window that would be typical of a barn typology, and then at the opposite end, which you can see the rear view from the parking lot, a sliding barn door in that opposite gable wall. So we think that's a nice complement to the barn imagery that we're presenting along Main Street. Additionally, we were asked to look at to prepare a section through the site. So the bottom left there, you see a site cross section. So from the right, starting at Main Street, you see the elevation of the building, which also shows that barn door opening across the parking lot, and then the slope up towards the rear of the lot. So there's the difference in elevation, I think in round numbers, is about 16 feet from the lowest point to the top of the slope. But you can see from the site section that it is, while it's certainly a change in grade, it is not as steep as you might think. It's not a cliff by any means. And then we also created some views looking from the end of the parking lot, from what would be the top of that hill, over across the back of the lot, a view towards the entry, again showing that barn door at the gable end of the building, and a view from Main Street looking across March towards the building. Updated elevations, which were submitted. We also provided, if you look at the south elevation, we provided trees, plantings along the screen wall at that gable end of the building. And here we have an aerial from the rear. Updated signage plan, which is essentially consists of just dimensioning across all of the signage that we submitted previously. I'll turn it over to Langen for a quick review of the traffic.
Good afternoon, members of the board. As previously said, my name is Maximo Polanco with Langen Engineering, and I'm the traffic engineer that worked on this development. So I think you've heard enough about traffic, so I'll try to keep it brief today. So basically, we conducted a traffic study following latest industry standards and I would say Mass DOT standards, since we have access on Main Street, which is within Mass DOT jurisdiction. So what you're seeing in yellow here are all the intersections that we collected data to analyze the impacts of the development. In addition, what is not shown here is that we collected 24-hour continuous counts along Main Street to understand the variations of traffic, I would say, in a complete 24-hour period. So these counts were collected at the intersections from 7 to 9 a.m. and 4 to 6 p.m. We then grew that traffic to the future, in this case 2030, based on Mass DOT standards. And in addition to that, I would say, consulted with Alex all of the approved developments in the area and added those traffics in addition to the growth that we applied to the traffic. And after that, we basically assigned or added the traffic expected from our proposed development and evaluated or compared the future without the development and the future with the development, and found that there's not going to be basically noticeable traffic impacts in the area, and the roadway network can sufficiently handle the traffic here. So I would say that's in a very small, brief sentence what the traffic study concluded. And the second, I would say the second slide that we show here, this is our proposed site, which basically has one driveway connecting or providing access. Yep.
Just a little finicky. It's tired. It's a tired.
So one full access driveway, basically.
Yeah. Just hold it.
Yeah. That provides access to the site. And I would say,
it's a pleasure to call.
Appreciate that.
If you look at I would say the site, if you have a plan near you, you will see that we have, I would say, a long driveway that provides enough throat for vehicles to enter and exit the site without any, I would say, traffic conflicts between vehicles entering and exiting. I do want to mention that based on our initial plans, the driveway, I would say, was a little bit north, and it was shifted a little bit because we are complying with one of the comments from the fire department to provide a 25-foot radius to, I would say, safely access for the fire department. And in general, I would say this is our site, and those are the traffic impacts for it.
All right.
And I'll pass it to Hillary if Hillary wants to talk about civil.
Let me know if you need any help.
Oh, that's okay. As Maximo, hi, Hillary Holmes, Langen, civil engineer for the project. As Maximo had noted, the main shift on our site plan since you last saw it was really the driveway entrance and shifting that over, I believe, like a little bit over 10 feet.
11 feet.
11 feet, really to comply with the fire department's comments. Some of the other comments that, occurred in the town planner, as well as the town engineer and the traffic review had to do with snow storage. So we did make that change, and I submitted that to Alex, the town planner, as well, to move it outside of the pavement that was shown on our older plan here. If you go to the next plan, we shifted it. We shifted it out, so in orange you can see shifting it out of the pavement into the lawn areas to provide adequate snow storage on pervious areas. There were also some other comments that we had addressed per the town engineer's review. In terms of the latest comments we received from them, there were 3 comments that were very minor that we have no issue addressing. One had to do with curb detail, adding some concrete on the other side. The other had to do with doing televising for the sanitary connection, which there's no issue with that as well. And then the other had to do with the water connection. So again, we can fully comply with those comments.
Okay. All set?
Yep.
All right. We'll start with Mr. Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Ms. Lavin, do we have anything more recent from engineering than the July 10th letter?
No.
No?
Nope, the July 10th letter details the 3 comments that Ms. Holmes just highlighted.
Yeah.
And I believe, forgive me for putting words in your mouth, that the applicants wanted to make sure that there were no other outstanding issues before they made those final revisions.
Okay, so you've worked out those issues, all of these issues with engineering?
We received the comments on July 10th, and we comply with all 3.
So we received the comments, we can comply with all 3. We would ask if that could be a condition. They're relatively minor.
Sure, understood.
And to be honest with you, I did contact Alex because we wanted to make the submissions, but engineering wouldn't have time to review it before this meeting this evening.
Yeah, I understand.
So time was really against us, unfortunately. But we would have submitted them.
And then just another quick question. I thought I had asked something about, because that lot sort of slopes from front to back quite a bit there, and we had asked a little bit about maybe a retaining wall, because I remember looking at the topo, and it's quite a slope from back to front.
Yeah, as I said earlier, the site section in the lower left here shows that while the slope does change approximately 16 feet, a retaining wall, we do have some retainage on site, but a retaining wall per se is not required. If you look at the image above, the aerial from the southwest, you see we have a portion of wall there. And there's another small portion of wall on the opposite side of the site. But we don't need retainage across the whole rear of the site.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
That site section was really worthwhile to look at because it does, show, how that topology, that topography plays out.
Right. No, that's a pretty good rendering on that. Thank you.
Are you good, Mr. Duffy?
That's it.
Okay,
That's all.
good.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just wanted to check. Mr. Lozano.
Just a couple of questions, mostly on traffic. So kind of following up on the last question that I asked, did you use the full 3290 square feet when you're calculating the traffic study there?
Yeah, we used 3,290.
Okay, so the entire footprint, not just the retail areas. Okay. And then the other thing I had, you had mentioned in one of the response letters that kind of the driveway location, I think there was a comment in there about working with DPW on it. Did you all work with DPW on that final placement? Is that their recommendation on where to place it as well?
Yes, so we did confer with the town engineer on the placement and if they had any concerns about it. They did not have any concerns about where we had located it, and then we had shifted it slightly from that.
Yeah, I think that's all the questions I have.
Mr. Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really want to commend you on a great job on this application. Having reviewed some of this over the weekend, the renderings look great. I like the barn look, and very easy to access if I'm looking for the lighting plan. It's just right here, very accessible. So great job on that. Very professional.
Thank you.
The question regarding the sidewalks, you're going to do sidewalks on both sides. That was an outstanding issue, right? Correct?
That's
So that's gonna be resolved?
Yes.
Okay. I did speak with the fire department today regarding the turning around access, and I mentioned to him the possibility of parking on March Street in the event something had occurred at the site. And he said that would be a definite possibility in the event there was a fire there, because an engine truck probably would be there first, you know, and not even have access for the fire ladder truck getting in there. So, but he said if we had to, we could park on March Street, and he said he was fine with the design and so forth and so on, so that made me feel pretty good. And again, you're gonna hold off on the curb stops, all right, so make sure the truck can get in and get out, so. But with that, I'm all set, and I wish you guys good luck.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess just one thing that really stands out to me is, in looking at the elevation, which, thank you for providing that, you know, so across the street on Marsh Street, you have Mavericks. In the front of Mavericks, you have about a 15-foot high pitched roof structure, which is the front of the restaurant. Behind that, you've got about a 25-ish foot addition that they put on, which, you know, when I saw that, I thought it was kind of a monstrosity. And so, but that's set back a long way from the street. The front of your building's about 25 feet from the edge of Route 38, 5 feet of sidewalk, about 20 feet of property, and then we're going up 26 feet. To me, that just feels like it's going to be a very, very large street front presence. And one of the things that, I guess, we talked about this before, but you have about 80-foot tall trees, which kind of make your building look like it's a lot smaller than it actually is. Similarly, in one of the other views, you have what looks like a Chevy ZR1, and it looks like it's almost as big as the entire front of the building, which again, the scale makes it look like the building is smaller than it actually is.
Referring to this view here?
This one here.
Yeah, so just to address a couple, this is the view from the parking lot side, but it would be similar from Main Street. So, you know, all the cars placed are to scale. It is a one-story building with which is fairly modest in footprint. So your top of wall is at 1 story, it's about a little less than 12 feet. And then it slopes upwards to a maximum of about 26 feet at the ridge. So you're not perceiving that 26 feet as a wall. It's sloping to, you know, to a ridge, as you see here on the street view from the northwest. So I think as far as the scale of the building, it is appropriate to Main Street. If it were multi-story, I think that the massing would be much more imposing, but this should not, you know, bear down on the street in any way visually.
All right, because I'm looking at your top left rendering, the axonometric, and in that rendering, from the soil to the bottom of the roof, looks like the same height as the bottom of the roof to the top of the roof, but in actuality, it should be 50% more. So that roof in that rendering actually looks flatter than what it would be if you're standing directly at the side.
Are you referring to the view number 2 in comparison to?
The top left.
Yeah.
Versus the bottom, you know, the roof, you can see the pitch of the roof on the bottom right, and you look at the pitch of the roof on the top left.
Well, I guess
the scale looks very different on those.
The only way I mean, the scale should be the same. You know, these renderings are derived from a camera view and a model, and we adjust the angle of the, you know, of the view to get the view that we desire. And you will have some foreshortening of perspective, so I think that that's what's making the roof pitch look different, but it's the same model, just a different vantage point and a different camera angle. So that's really the only way that I can explain that, and which should mirror reality. We find that, you know, these days we model things, we wed them to a model of the site, and they're dead nuts to what you will get when you eventually build it and take a photo. But because of the way the perspective works, it may look a little different, you know, from one view to another. So that's what I think is at play here. But yeah, the overall idea behind this sheet is to show the evolution of the design, adding the gable end windows, responding to comments about planting along that screen wall on the north and west side of the building. So we tried to address all those concerns and show what it would look like.
Okay. I guess I'll just ask my question then, which is, can we bring down the pitch on that roof, bring down that peak?
We could certainly...
Are you using the space up there for anything, or are you just going to be heating dead space? Is it a giant attic?
Well, there's a couple things that derive the pitch, and that is a pitch that is typical of a barn-type shape. It's very much kind of a stereotypical house shape, which has a certain pitch that has that visual barn look. My concern would be that as we drop it, it becomes a lot more like you see a low-pitched prefabricated building. You see a very low-pitched roofs in those types of buildings, and that's not kind of the image that we wanted to present. We wanted it to look like a barn, and barns do have a fairly prominent roof pitch. And then the other notion behind the pitch of the roof is that like any new construction that's sustainably aware, that we have the ability to provide solar panels, and the roof pitch will contribute to the solar orientation should the solar panels be implemented. So those were the ideas behind the design that we presented.
Okay, because I'm looking at this and just using my own experience, and it just, I get the feeling if I take that building that's in the back of Mavericks and move it up 25 feet off the street front, that we're going to have a very large, I feel very out of place street front presence with the building.
I think again, if we look at the site section where you've got a true projection, straight on projection, you can see the pitch of the roof there, which I believe, I'm trying to recall the exact pitch that was implemented, but because it was a factor of, I think it's like a 6 or 8 or 12, so it's not,
Yeah, that would be good.
if I direct you to the site section, you can see that pitch is not like a 45-degree angle, which would be much steeper.
Those are all the comments I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. So I appreciate the add-ons, that I think makes for a much more aesthetically pleasing look from the left and the right, which was important to me because, again, being on Main Street, that's going to be visible. The three sides to me on almost anything on Main Street are important because, the way you see them as you come down the road, especially when there's nothing on either side of you really that is where you are. So, you're going to get a clear view for a pretty long way coming at the sides, the building. I appreciate Mr. Ciampa's, comments on the roof, but I like the look because I like the barn look now that, you've got the rest of the stuff on there. And I know too, yes, it sits out there, but that's by design as well because the old version of the way we did stuff was we pushed everything back and put all the parking in the front, which is, to me, I don't know why we ever wanted that version. Having the buildings out on Main Street and any parking behind makes so much more sense because the thing that's most aesthetically pleasing, if we all do it right, is the building, not the parking. Right. And Mavericks, since you brought it up, is a great example of, it's a little pushed back, but I'd be surprised if that would have come in today, that would get by us the way it is. Without being specific or absolute, I would just be a little surprised if that came in here and we were fine with it going out the door. So, that's for those reasons I like this setup. I like it out front. I like the parking in the back. I don't need to see parking. I don't need to see asphalt as I'm, coming down Main Street. We want that stuff, moved out. And I think just about you know, not all, but most of the ones that we do at this point, push everything up to the front and push everything else, you know, in the behind of, you know, parking or whatever other things that can be back there. I like the way that you've got, you know, with the side, with the fencing around it, and now the plantings that, you know, that breaks up that sort of very stark side that's coming from the south going north. And I like the barn doors on the other side, so I think all that works to exactly what I was hoping you'd be able to, you know, come up with for this, because I thought the only things that were a drawback to me were those two sides. It's too much side and not enough things breaking it up. So other than that, I think the rest of my questions have been answered and/or asked and answered from everybody else, so I'm good. So anyone in the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns on this?
My name's Joshua Bosco. I'm the 8 Mile Road direct abutter. Just wondering how long this might take to get done.
Well, I can't answer that, nor could they, for the following reason.
No,
that-
but there's usually a schedule during the
Well, no,
construction schedule.
I'm going to explain what I mean, which is that we're not the finished step, because they have to go to the select board next. So there's...
Okay, cool. So after the fence that I just put up around my property that was surveyed, professionally done, is that buffer still going to be taken care of? 56-foot buffer, 60-foot buffer, whatever they were talking about last time?
I'm not sure what the question is. Do you know what he means?
There's a 56, you guys are talking about a 56-foot buffer
plan. I'm going there right now.
between the property lines.
Which,
That's gonna
which
keep
property?
the trees, the natural landscape, all that.
You're talking in the back, right?
No, I live at 8 March Road.
Yep, I'm just trying to zoom in, sorry.
So when you're saying 50 foot, though, 50 foot's the rear.
There's supposed to be a buffer, yes.
Right.
From the rear of my
Going-
property.
No, the rear of their property, not the
So
rear of your property.
property to mine, or? I'm like confused, you know what I mean?
I don't, you're going to have to...
So,
I see my,
I don't know what that distance is right there, but that's you over here, right?
yes.
this is 50 feet.
So that's a side, not a back, to their property. It's the back of your property.
Yeah.
So what you're asking is what, I don't know, can you come up with what that
So then
spacing
I'm
is?
taking the other lot, and just taking the one lot?
We do have it called out on our site plan if you go to the site plan slide.
I just don't know how, do you know how far down it is?
Just
Yeah, so if
confused,
you
know
zoom
what I
in a
mean?
little bit, just because I can't read.
Well, it's not a problem, it's just
No,
a
we just
difference.
want- we want to
We're trying to use the right terminology. 50-foot setback
Yes.
goes back from their building.
Okay.
There aren't 50-foot setbacks on the sides.
Because there is
Yeah.
massive trees.
Right. What I think he's looking for, from where the end of your parking lot is, or the last space, from there to the property line for his, about how big is that space where there's nothing going
There
on?
should be a call out.
24.
Did I go too
So,
far?
sorry, can,
Why does
Yeah, I was
yeah,
gonna
can
say, I don't know if you
just
wanna.
split it, yeah, zoom out a little bit, just so you can see. So,
Yeah, okay, so it's 10 feet.
That's me.
yeah, so there's a 10-foot pavement setback. So the first line you see closest to the abutter property is the 10-foot pavement setback. And then there's also the side setback, which I believe is 15.
So you have 50 feet at the rear, 15 at the side, and then a 10-foot pavement setback at the planned south.
So it's like 60, 70.
But in answer to your question, all of those would be, maintained as part of the site, and the responsibility of the owner to maintain.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like making a big deal about it, but I don't want the disruption between.
So if I understand it correctly, starting down at the bottom, you got the 10-foot from where you see, just below it, you see the word retaining, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then it curves up through, right?
Yeah.
And then moving to what's more sort of the back of his property, you're talking about the distance between where you've got that curve
Correct.
Yes.
and then up into the space. So the smallest section would be where it ends, where the curve is. And that's gotta be, it's gotta be more than 10, so what's that, 15?
15,
20?
yes.
Okay, so the back, the closest of the back is at least 20 of the back of your property to where they stop doing anything in terms of whether it's part of the parking lot, a parking space, or anything like that. And then as it goes out, it gets larger, because then it heads towards that last parking space.
Right, but wasn't there a 56 foot buffer? Wasn't there a buffer of 50 something off feet?
The 50,
last time?
right, no, but the 50-foot buffer is to the back of their property. If you see up at the top in the middle, you see where it says 50 yards?
Up there, yeah. So that,
The 50-foot is only going backwards from their property. It's not back from you. You're not the one doing something. They're the one building off Main Street, going backwards. So the 50-foot buffer is the rear. Just like in your house, you have rear and front setbacks that are different from the side setbacks, or your house wouldn't fit on most lots the way they're done. You have a much bigger back and front setback than the sides. The sides are usually 10, 15 feet depending. But the back setback and the front setback of your house are different. So you have the same type of rules, they're just different for a house than what they're doing. So your back is your back, their back is their back, because their frontage is on Main Street, your frontage is on March.
I think another point to be aware of is that, you know, if you look at the rear setback line of 50 feet, but from the house to the nearest parking lot is at least 50 feet again. There's maybe 30-foot overlap at the corner, and then the entire front yard is open here. So this buffer here is the entire dimension of this boundary line to Main Street. So if you consider that a buffer to the front, you know, just as a de facto undeveloped parcel of the lot, it's quite, you know, it's the full depth of the lot. So you have virtually no disturbance towards, you know, towards Main Street from your rear lot. So where your garage ends to Main Street, there is no disturbance whatsoever. And I think that's an important point to make.
I don't care about Main Street. I'm worried about.
And then directly behind the house, you have, you know,
Parking, the snow storage, the dumpster.
Well, the dumpster's on the opposite side. Up here.
Correct, but, you know, there's a dumpster at Jim Boudreaux's, and it's 6 a.m., and boom, boom, boom. There's lights, it's Santa, the dealership across the street, the people have had the neighbors, and I haven't lived there much now. You know what I mean? I've been there for a year.
Did we already discuss having limits on the time that they can do the
we
pickups?
already addressed
We did
it,
that, correct?
yes.
Okay. So, we didn't, I wasn't here when Boudreaux's was done, so I don't know what their pickup times are, but.
I wasn't there either.
Right. So we've set it
Yes,
for no
absolutely.
earlier than, what was it? Was it 8?
So, yeah, so at the last meeting, one of the other neighbors had addressed concerns regarding trash pickup and noise and lighting. And what we had explained to him and worked out with him is that we were going to ensure no trash was picked up after business hours. It's only during business hours, and the town sets those business hours. And we would, you know, ensure that doesn't happen.
And what's the earliest that you open?
I believe it's 10 a.m. based on the town's.
So, yeah, that'll give you another 4 on top of whatever's going on over at Boudreaux's. I don't know their pickup time, so. All right, so, okay, do we?
I'm not against it.
No, okay. Do we address the ones that you've asked, though?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so.
All right. Did you have any other questions?
It's a dead end road. They're gonna do signing, they're gonna do.
I didn't hear that. I didn't hear what you said. Can you move over to the microwave just a little bit? Thank you.
It's a dead end road.
Yeah.
So when you miss the shop, are you gonna turn around in my driveway?
Well, I mean, you're not supposed to, but they can't control that.
No, they can't control that, but what do you know what I mean? They talk about traffic, everybody talks about traffic.
Right, I understand, but I mean, if there was something I could have them do that could prevent somebody from doing something illegal, they just can't, nor can anybody else.
Every day. So,
Well, I understand what you're saying, but there isn't something for us to do to stop somebody from something they shouldn't already do, is what I'm saying. When they drive onto your driveway, they've done something they shouldn't have done.
right, so.
They can't stop them, I can't stop them.
Good fences make good neighbors.
We have, good point. All right, anyone else with any questions, comments, or concerns on this? Seeing none, bring it back to the board. Anything else from anyone?
All set.
All right, so if I understood it correctly, you're willing to meet all three of the outstanding engineering comments, so that leaves us with...
Any waivers?
Well, there's one waiver, which is the driveway must be located 50 feet from the intersection, which we've already discussed earlier. So that's the only waiver, and then we've got the 6 listed here.
So the only one I neglected to include was that trash disposal hours must occur during normal business hours, which is
So,
what we've
yeah,
already
so we'll
discussed.
add
So we
that
can
one.
have 7 conditions if that's all right with the applicants.
Okay, so we'll have that one. You have no issue with these, correct?
Correct, you do not.
Okay. All right, so then I will say again, what is the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to close the public hearing.
A motion made, do I have a second? Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Do the waiver first, so as discussed, we have the section 6.1.10.b. Do we have a motion on the waiver?
So moved.
A motion made, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. As to the site plan review, do we have a motion?
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve the site plan review at 2186 to 2196 Main Street with the conditions we discussed earlier.
So the 7 conditions that we just discussed. So we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Do we need to do the minor land disturbance permit too? Gotcha, okay. Okay.
All right, that moves us to correspondence. I didn't see any correspondence, so we don't have any. Other business not known at the time of posting this agenda. Do we have any of those types of things?
I had a couple of questions, Alex, if you could. Whatever happened to the American Gutter issue regarding the sidewalks? Did we get that resolved?
So they have submitted for a minor site plan review, which is administrative. I received it on Friday. I have not dug into it yet.
Okay, all right. There was a question about the concrete or...
Versus,
bituminous.
asphalt, yep.
Yeah, okay. And the other question I had is, what is up with Mirabella's? I drive by it regularly, it's on Main Street, it's a site that's just, the orange fencing is falling down and nothing is happening there, so I just was curious.
So I am glad you asked. I spoke with the business owner earlier last week. You saw that the house that was there on the lot came down, which I'm sure no one's super sorry about. The intent is to create additional parking for the establishment, and that is going to trigger site plan review, and I have informed the owner and his engineer that they need to apply. They may be our new application on August 21st. But otherwise, they do have building permits, and they've been working on the inside to do a build-out.
I see no activity there at all, no trucks in the yard or nothing, so for weeks, but hey,
Yeah.
whatever. Just curious. I figured you'd know.
Yeah, they're
Anyway.
targeting mid to late fall for opening.
Okay.
What about what was the other one, where Bluebird was down there?
They have some items to resolve with the building commissioner regarding existing conditions versus the proposed improvements to the site. Or, excuse me, not the site, the inside of the building.
All right, nobody else, right? All right, with that, I will take a motion for adjournment. A motion made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Good evening, see you next time.